Daryl, Maggie and a group of Alexandrians are mobilizing at a military base. They open a trapdoor in the ground. Maggie leads a small group to the helicopter hangar. They enter a room filled with walkers lying motionless on the ground. They quietly bypass the walkers. Magna breaks the lock on the door, and the group walks down the corridor. They find a crate full of Marie and stuff it into their backpacks. Maggie, Carol and Rosita load backpacks onto a pulley system. Daryl and Alden lift their backpacks up. The pulley snaps. Daryl grabs the backpack before it can fall on the walkers, but he cuts his hand, and drops of his blood fall on the walker. The walker stirs, waking up all the other walkers in the room. Maggie's group starts killing walkers. Daryl and Alden lift the team to safety one by one. The group returns to Alexandria. Daryl hugs Judith and RJ. Herschel runs up to Maggie with Cole, Duncan and Agatha, members of Maggie's old community who have reached Alexandria in search of her. Nearby, Gabriel breaks up a fight between people arguing about food rations. Gabriel holds an emergency meeting and announces that there is only enough food in Alexandria for a week. Maggie offers to replenish supplies by returning her old community, Meridian, which was captured by a group that destroyed most of its inhabitants. Daryl and Gabriel volunteer to join her. Maggie leads the group through Washington, D.C., en route to Meridian. Caught in a thunderstorm, they decide to take shelter at a subway station. Maggie's team goes underground. Daryl suggests they travel through the subway tunnels. Negan strongly disagrees, but Maggie orders him to tell them the fastest subway route to Meridian, since he is the most familiar with the District of Columbia. They jump onto the tracks. The group is walking through the subway tunnel. They can hear the pipes groaning from the storm wind. Negan points to a watermark on the wall, indicating that the tunnels are regularly flooded. He suggests they turn back, but Daryl rejects his idea. Eugene and Ezekiel, Yumika and the princess end up in a camp guarded by paramilitary units. In the interrogation room, a man and a woman introduce themselves to Eugene as Commonwealth auditors. They interrogate him for several hours, as well as Ezekiel, Yumik and the princess. And Ezekiel interrupts the interrogation and correctly guesses that the paratrooper who was quietly watching him is actually in charge. He coughs uncontrollably. The paratrooper, Mercer, passes him a glass of water. A group of Ezekiel eats together in the detention center. The princess, Yumika, and Il agree that they should try to escape, but Eugene claims that the Commonwealth can help Alexandria. The princess asks some of the prisoners how long they have been there. One of the prisoners replies that he can't remember because of the processing, and then they fall silent. The paratroopers take the prisoner away to send him for recycling. Eugene changes his mind and agrees that they need to escape. In the subway tunnel, Maggie's group stumbles upon a pile of corpses, each wrapped in plastic. Daryl removes the plastic from one body and kills the walker when he snaps. They notice that the walker didn't make any sounds because his throat was cut. Maggie orders the group to kill all the walkers so they can continue on their way. Maggie's group kills every walker with a knife. A huge walker silently attacks Gagey. Negan kills the walker and refuses to go any further, calling Maggie's plan a death march. Gate Shira agrees with Negan, but Maggie insists that Negan should stay with them to guide them through DC. Negan guesses that Maggie took him with her to send him to his death. Maggie admits that she constantly thinks about killing Negan, and is not sure how long her self-restraint will last. Eugene's group discusses an escape plan. The princess watches their guards with interest and talks about the details that no one noticed. She says that two of them regularly disappear for half an hour to have sex. They develop an escape plan in this time interval. Yumika and Eugene put on their military uniforms and escort the princess and Ezekiel down the corridor. The paratrooper asks where they are going. Yumika says they are taking prisoners to be processed. The serviceman releases them. They leave the building and walk past a wall covered with photographs of prisoners. The princess recognizes Yumika in one of the photos. Yumika sees that the photo is accompanied by a note from her brother asking if anyone has seen Yumika. She realizes that her brother is in the complex, and decides that she must stay and find him. Maggie's group realizes that Gage and Roy have secretly escaped and taken all their supplies. A herd of walkers appears further down the tunnel. They start killing walkers and are looking for an escape route. Daryl runs after the dog while the rest of the group climbs the stairs to safety. Maggie climbs the stairs last. The walker grabs her leg. She calls the book for help, but he throws her, she loses her grip and falls. Maggie fights off the approaching horde with a pistol until she runs out of ammo, and then the walkers pounce on her. Meanwhile, the rest of the group makes their way inside the car, but discovers that the doors to the next car are closed. When Negan goes downstairs, the group asks about Maggie's whereabouts, to which Negan replies that she was right behind him. Although Gabriel is clearly upset, he decides to continue the mission. Following the dog, Daryl punches a hole in the wall and climbs inside. Inside the tunnel, he finds the remains of the camp. In the Yumika Fellowship, Eugene and the princess discuss the disappearance of Azeka or. Later, the auditors interview Yumik. She explains that she was a criminal defense lawyer before the apocalypse and has reason to believe that her brother lives in the Commonwealth and is looking for her. She requests accelerated processing for her group. Returning to the subway, there is a loud noise, followed by a scream. In pursuit of him, the dog jumps into the pipe, forcing Daryl to climb behind him. While Daryl crawls down the tube, the rest of the group finally manages to open the door and walk forward to the next car. Suddenly they hear a knock under them, which specifically signals SOS in Morse code. When they open the trapdoor, Maggie climbs into the subway car alive. Enraged, she beats Negan for his betrayal and explains to the others what happened. Negan readily admits his guilt. Alden accuses Negan of trying to kill Maggie, but he corrects him, explaining that he simply decided not to save her when she was in trouble. Agatha offers to kill Negan, assuring Maggie that they can get through the city without him. Before anything can happen, they hear someone screaming for help from the back of the train car. They find Gagey trapped in the last car, unable to open the door. He explains that he and Roy got lost in the tunnels. However, Gage did not close the door behind him when he entered the car, which allowed walkers to break in. Negan asks for help to open the door and let Gage in, but Maggie objects, as this will allow walkers to get into them. Despite this, Alden tries to help Negan open the door, but Duncan stops him. Gage begs Maggie to save him, apologizing for his mistake and promising to make amends, but she is adamant they don't have ammo to destroy the walkers. Embittered, Gage calls her a liar, and then stabs himself in the chest to save himself the pain of being torn apart by walkers. As Frost and Duncan try to open the front car door, Maggie stares at the crawling car long enough to see Gage get up and join the horde. Alden counters that Gage didn't deserve to die in the most horrible way imaginable. Meanwhile, Daryl finds a trail of blood inside the tunnel and hears a dog barking. Soon he comes across a wounded Roy. He meekly asks for help, and then faints. Having dispersed the walkers chasing Roy, Daryl comes to his aid. He asks Roy if he went outside, and Roy confirms, admitting that it was a bad idea. He also says he lost the Gagey, as well as the bag of ammunition he was carrying. Roy hands Daryl his remaining weapon. Roy's only request: for Daryl to tell his kids that he didn't die a coward. Frost and Duncan finally manage to open the door, but the next one turns out to be blocked. The pressure of walkers on the opposite door, including the zombified Gage, eventually leads to the door breaking. Gabriel drives off the walkers with a shotgun, and Maggie gives Negan a gun to help kill the herd. Meanwhile, Daryl sneaks up on the walkers in the front car and begins to deal with them with Roy's gun. When the ammunition runs out, the survivors are forced to resort to melee weapons. Fortunately, Daryl gets to the locked door in time and is able to open it. When everyone is inside, he puts a grenade in the mouth of a walker and pushes him into the horde, after which he slams the door and goes into hiding. As a result of the explosion, the remaining walkers die. Eugene is taken to a room for further questioning by General Mercer. Eugene scares Mercer, who demands to know where his settlement is and why he ended up at the train station. Eugene tells the truth, breaking down in the process. With a bag on his head, Eugene is brought to the train car, where he rejoices at being reunited with his friends. He also asks Ezeki where the soldiers took him, but the latter replies that he was taken to the infirmary, where he was given cough syrup. Their conversation is interrupted when Mercer enters the room. He officially accepts them into the Commonwealth. Mercer then knocks on the door twice. When it opens, a woman who introduces herself as Stephanie enters. After taking Roy, Maggie's group finally gets to the surface. Negan obediently returns Maggie her gun. Agatha asks if they are going to hit the road, but Maggie says that first they will go to Warba Hills, where there is a hidden warehouse of supplies arranged by Georgie. She asks Negan if he knows where it is, and he confirms, "I offer to lead them." Arriving at the scene, the group is alarmed by the sight of bodies scattered along the road they are driving. Suddenly, arrows and throwing knives fly into the group, killing Roy and Cole heavily earlier. As the group runs for cover, they see a group of Reapers approaching them.
When the Reapers launch an attack, the group flees through the forest. Alden, Negan, and Gabriel are wounded, and Cole is killed by one of the Reapers. Duncan, on the other hand, is wounded by several throwing knives. Maggie is briefly trapped by the whip, but Elijah comes to her rescue and frees her, but falls into the trap himself. Left alone, Maggie observes the surroundings. Sensing a Reaper nearby, she throws Elijah's sickle at him, but misses. However, this gives her enough time to escape. Standing guard on the walls of Alexandria, Magna tries to shoot down one of the vultures with a bow. Before she can do this, she is overtaken by the appearance of Kelly and Carol. Before she can escape, Magna stops Kelly and asks why she missed her shift with Magna. Kelly says that something has happened to her, but promises to work the next shift with Magna. Magna gently asks if Kelly wants to talk about it, but Kelly waves her off. On her way to the storeroom, Carol passes by Aaron and a group of Alexandrians repairing a wall. Aaron asks if she is going to leave already, noting that she was supposed to help with the repair of the wall. Carol replies that she is busy, as she plans to catch the horses that escaped from Alexandria. Aaron, based on personal experience, warns her that there is little hope that she will really catch horses and believes that repairing walls is more important. Carol protests that without horses they won't be able to walk far into the woods or move heavy loads, which means they will starve. Judith, Gracie, RJ and Herschel are playing cards. Herschel asks Judith if she's scared when her mom leaves, but Judith replies that she's used to it, jokingly mimicking their farewell speeches. Herschel gloomily notices that the adults say the same phrases as before when they left, but now they cannot promise that they will return safely. Judith says it's just to make them feel better. However, Judith proudly declares that her mom always comes back, which RJ agrees with. Walking on alone, Maggie approaches the mall. Trying to find the entrance, she is frightened by a throwing knife that flies past her. Staggering, she finds another door and enters the building. Going out to the stairwell, she builds an improvised alarm system by installing glass bottles on the door handles. She crosses an empty shopping mall and climbs another staircase. She is attacked by a walker, but she manages to kill him and throw him over the railing, although she drops the flashlight in the process. After climbing one floor, she inspects the way she came with the lighter, while the Reaper sneaks up behind her. Before he can kill her, both are alarmed by the sound of breaking glass, which gives Maggie the opportunity to dodge the Reaper's attack and kick him over the railing and down the stairs. However, after looking around, Maggie does not see the Reaper's body and soon hears the footsteps of her pursuer running towards her. Gabriel lies wounded in the woods, his leg pierced with a knife. He prays quietly, and then notices a lone Reaper limping away. With renewed determination, Gabriel pulls the knife out of his leg and sets off in pursuit of the Reaper. On the top floor of the mall, Maggie reunites with Alden, but before they can catch their breath, they are attacked by a pair of Reapers. Maggie struggles with the Reaper she encountered earlier, but eventually manages to pierce his neck with a broken bottle. Out of nowhere, Negan helps Maggie by finishing off the Reaper with his crowbar. Maggie throws a knife at the remaining Reaper's back, but before they can kill him, the Reaper throws an explosive package, stunning both Negan and Maggie. In the short time it took them to recover, they discover that the Reaper is no more, along with the body of the Reaper they managed to kill. Rushing to Alden's aid, Maggie discovers that he is seriously injured during the attack. Maggie tries to help him up, but Negan is amazed that Maggie wants to continue. He asks what the plan is, to which Maggie resolutely replies that the plan does not change, they will reunite with the others, and then get food. Negan objects that the others may be dead and condemns Maggie's plan. Knowing a lot about theatrical productions, he notices that the Reapers have shown how crazy they are, and warns that they can be on any road. Maggie snaps at Negan and suggests that he come up with a better plan that won't lead to them starving to death. Negan assures Maggie that he is on her side, and Maggie asks him to help her carry Alden. In the woods, Carol, Magna and Kelly stumble upon Rosita picking mushrooms. Rosita is busy while Gabriel is on a mission, so she is happy to join Carol and the others in their attempt to get the horses back. When they finally find them, they try to sneak up on them cautiously several times, but fail, as the horses get scared before they have time to throw a lasso on them. Catching up with Carol, Rosita confesses to her that she has been dreaming about Abraham lately. In a dream, Abraham tries to tell Rosita something important, but at the moment when he is about to do it, he is shot in the head. Rosita used to worry about this dream, but now she believes that this is a message for them, although she does not know what Abraham is trying to say. Magna, meanwhile, tells Kelly that she's read that if horses let you touch their ear, it means they trust you. Kelly asks if Magna thinks they will be able to catch them, but she is not sure because the horses, wild creatures. After a short break, Maggie determines that there are 2 miles left to her destination. Continuing on their way, they hear the screams of a woman who is struggling with walkers. Maggie and Alden rush to the rescue, much to Negan's chagrin. The woman turns out to be Agatha, protecting the mortally wounded Duncan. After helping Agatha, Maggie apologizes to Duncan, but he dismisses her, believing that they were lucky. Dying, Duncan asks Maggie to make sure that Agatha returns home. When he dies, Maggie plunges a knife into his head in grief to prevent him from reviving. Carol and her companions continue their search until they discover the mutilated bodies of several horses. Kelly is upset by this sight, and Magna comforts her. Despite this, Carol wants to continue the search. Rosita protests that they can continue tomorrow, but Carol is adamant. Noticing her distress, Magna comforts Carol by hugging her and persuading her to stop looking. On the way back, Kelly assures Carol that they will find them next time. However, Rosita hears the sound of hooves and realizes that they still have a chance to catch the horses. In the clearing they see 5 horses galloping. Rosita notices that the horses are running towards the dairy farm, where there are paddocks in which they can be locked up. On the farm, they successfully lure horses. Carol manages to calm the horse down enough that she lets the women pet her. Gabriel finally catches up with the Reaper he was tracking. The Reaper Nichols is seriously injured and reads a prayer. He greets Gabriel in a friendly manner and tells him not to be afraid, but Gabriel assures him that this is not the case. Enraged, Gabriel says that Nichols tried to kill his friends, but he replies that they in turn tried to kill him. He asks Gabriel to pray for him, stating that even his enemies deserve it. Disappointed by Gabriel's refusal, Nichols says he considered Gabriel a man of God. Gabriel coldly replies that God is no longer here, after which he kills the Reaper. Maggie watches a group of walkers, and Negan notices that there are twice as many of them as before, and asks Maggie to reconsider her plan. Maggie tells Negan that he can leave if he wants to. Negan insists that he can help her and that he has changed during the time she has been away. Maggie, however, doesn't believe him and bitterly tells Negan to stop pretending to be one of them, even if he believes it himself. As the group continues on their way, Alden asks Maggie if she's okay. He suspects that Alexandria is not the place where Maggie thought to return home, and not the place she told Herschel about. Maggie says she's not surprised by much anymore, but the destruction of the Hilton surprised her. She adds that she's not sure Herschel is surprised by much either. Alden assures Maggie that she will restore everything to a better state than it was, and that maybe it will be done by the time Adam is old enough to remember. Maggie is surprised, but glad that Alden is raising a child. Before he can tell Maggie what to do in the event of his death, she interrupts him, promising to start the recovery process as soon as they return. Soon they come to a walker, tied to a stake and charred to the bone. The plaque above it says that the walker is Judas. Suddenly, the group is surrounded by walkers. They try to escape, but Agatha is bitten at the same time. In order for the others to escape, Agatha sacrifices herself to a walker. Maggie tries to intervene, but Negan drags her away. Carol and her group return to Alexandria with the horses in tow, much to the delight of the other Alexandrians. While they tie up the others, Carol takes one horse away. Magna catches up with Carol, wanting to talk. She asks Carol to stop giving Kelly false hopes as it just complicates Kelly's life. Carol takes the horse to the stable and puts it down. Having calmed him down, she slaughters the horse for food. Later in the day, the Alexandrian woman eats a canine. The kids don't want to eat it, but Herschel assures them it's not that bad, or at least better than spiders. Outside, Rosita takes the cook to look at the horses, and Carol washes horse blood off her hands. Magna and Kelly eat together until Carol arrives to take Kelly for another run. Walking along the road, Maggie notices a church and decides to take a break there. Inside, Maggie feels that Negan wants to leave Alden behind, so she immediately rejects the idea. Alden, however, begs her to do it, as he slows them down. Alden further states that he left Negan and the Saviors and joined Maggie because he trusts her. Supplies, Alden determines, are the only thing that matters, since without them their community is starving, including Adam. Maggie says that Adam needs a father, but Alden objects that he is unlikely to get out of Meridian alive, being as wounded as he is, and asks her to leave him as she left Gage. Maggie replies that Gage made his choice, to which Alden states that he is making his own. Negan intervenes, pointing out that the sun is setting and that Maggie needs to make a decision. Looking back, Maggie suggests that it's easy for Negan to be reckless about someone else's life. She firmly tells him that he can no longer decide who lives and who dies. She continues to blame him for the situation, claiming that Negan destroyed everything they built. Negan is calm about swearing, but still insists that Maggie should make the decision. With a heavy heart, Maggie still decides to leave Alden. Separated from the group, Daryl sneaks around an abandoned building. Distracting the Reaper with a thrown stone, he escapes into the forest, but soon he is attacked by another Reaper. Daryl fights the Reaper until the dog helps him by biting the attacker. The dog is quickly thrown aside, but he manages to escape. 2 more Reapers are on the scene. When one of them tries to attack Daryl, the other does not let him do it. This gives Daryl enough time to escape by throwing a knife at the Reapers. In the morning, Daryl disembowels a walker to hide his scent, and then goes in search of the dog. One of the previous Reapers is looking for Daryl, but finds a dog instead. Daryl hears the dog barking in the distance and rushes to the noise, but discovers him sitting at the feet of the Reaper who was tracking him. Daryl orders the Reaper to release his pet, at which point the Reaper removes his mask and introduces himself to Leah. She is surprised to see Daryl again and asks if he is alone. When Daryl confirms that he is, Leah says she saw him on the road with the others. She asks Daryl about them, this time holding him at gunpoint. Daryl claims it was a group he met on the road, but insists he's not one of them. He tries to leave again, but is soon overtaken by 2 Reapers. Daryl was captured and taken to Meridian with a bag over his head. He is brought to the hut and left alone with Leah. Daryl informs Lee that he has indeed returned and has been looking for her everywhere, adding that he is sorry that she got to the Reapers. Leah claims that the Reapers, her family. Leah talks about her, they never stopped looking for her, and when they found her, she returned home. Leah asks if people were on the road with Daryl's family, but he claims that his people were destroyed in a conflict with another group, and insists that he is alone. She strangles him with a rag until he loses consciousness. When he regains consciousness, Daryl is being waterboarded by 2 Reapers under Lee's supervision. One of the Reapers, Carver, interrogates Daryl about the others, but Daryl stands by his opinion and claims that he knows nothing. In the end, Leah decides to stop the interrogation, despite Carver's protests. Leah persuades Daryl to talk, as their leader will not be so kind when he interrogates him. Daryl explains that he was just trading with the group, transporting their supplies in exchange for food, and claims to have known the groups for less than a week. Leah, however, does not believe him and takes Daryl back to the cell. After a short sleep, Daryl wakes up to find that Frost has also been captured and is in the cell next to him. Frost tries to talk to him, but Daryl fights him off, pretending that he doesn't know him or his friends. After catching the catch, Frost pretends to be offended by Daryl's words and tells him that they should have left him to starve. Frost is then taken away for questioning. After a while, Leah visits Daryl and reproaches him for his stubbornness and lies. Daryl swears that he never lied to her and is not going to start. Leah asks him about the band again, but Daryl claims he doesn't know anything about them. He asks her to let him go with the dog and promises that she will never see him again. Lee asks if this is what he wants, but their conversation is interrupted by a pair of Reapers dragging a badly beaten Frost into the cell. When Leah asks what the cause of the commotion is, Carver informs her that they have found Bosie. When Leah asks about Turner, Carver leads her into the hallway, where she sees Bosie crying because he failed to save Turner. Turner is lying dead next to him, and Mencia is reading a sermon over him. Saddened, Leah reads a small prayer for Turner. Pope, clearly upset, declares that God is angry, and so is he, and orders the Reapers to make the group they are hunting feel their anger. Leah returns to Daryl's cell and informs him that one of her brothers is dead. Michael Turner, she says, was like the little brother she never had, and this is the first time she's lost a loved one since she lost Daryl. Daryl counters that she hasn't lost him since he came back for her, but she's gone. Leah protests that it was Daryl who left. After sitting in silence for a while, Leah declares that it does not matter, since their relationship would not have developed in such a world anyway. Leah says that she can help Daryl escape, and claims that she still cares about him, no matter what. That is why, she warns, he must tell her something, otherwise she will not be able to control Pope's actions, since her commander is angry and wants someone to pay. Finally, Daryl admits that the group was led by a woman, and her lieutenants were a tall, thin guy who never shuts up, and a priest who carries a shotgun with him. He also warns Leah that the group outnumbers the Reapers by at least 3 dozen fighters. Grateful for the information, Leah promises to get Daryl out of the cell. Leah goes to the floor and tells him what Daryl told her. Moreover, she suggests they recruit Daryl. She is upset when Pa ignores her and demands an answer. Pa blames her for losing a day of surveillance so that Leah could interrogate her old boyfriend. After a moment of silence, he asks Leah about Daryl, to which she replies that Daryl would fit in well with their group because he is fearless. Pope, however, is skeptical and believes that Daryl just wants to be with Leah. He then asks why the line killed Daryl when she had the chance. Leah admits that Daryl once meant something to her, but claims that she broke all ties when she joined the Reapers, and does not regret her decision. Pope confesses that he trusts Lee more than all the other Reapers and asks if she can think they can trust Daryl. When she answers yes, Pope is pleased and intends to find out for himself. Daryl is brought to the hut where he was tortured earlier. The other Reapers taunt him until Leah arrives. When the others leave, Leah unties Daryl and says that Pope is on his way, and orders Daryl to follow her. Hearing a knock on the other side of the door, Leah goes to open it, but finds that it is locked. Then she notices that liquid is flowing from under the door, and jumps aside just as the door is set on fire. Leah and Daryl are trying to find a way out of the hut. Leah soon passes out from the smoke, and Daryl has to find something to open the windows. Leah finds a table for a waterboard, which Daryl breaks and uses one of the legs to knock the bars out of the windows. He helps Lee to get out, and then evacuates himself. Outside, they discover that Pulp and the other Reapers are watching them. Pulp considers Daryl forged by fire, consecrated by God, and accepts him into his ranks. At a private meeting, Pulp asks Daryl if he believes in God. When Daryl admits that he doesn't, he's disappointed. Confused, Daryl points out that he has passed their test, but Pope says that the test is not over yet. Over a drink and a cigarette, Pope explains the background of his band. The Reapers began as a military unit serving in Afghanistan, where a large number of their comrades died. Despite their self-sacrifice, the politicians didn't care about them and just used them as props. In those dark days, the soldiers had nothing but God and each other. After returning home, many Reapers found it difficult to reintegrate into society. Eventually, Pulp formed a group of mercenaries from his old unit, and they served all over the world. During the fall, Pulp witnessed such a bloodbath that his faith in God began to waver, as did Daryl's faith. When the military bombed the cities, the Reapers survived by hiding in a small church while everything was burning. Despite the dangerous situation, none of the Reapers were even injured. It was then that Pope came to believe that the Reapers were chosen by God to survive. He compares this situation to the fact that Daryl came out of the fire unscathed, claiming that God chose Daryl today. Pole brings Daryl to the campfire where the Reapers are having dinner and orders the boss to give Daryl some food. Pope then praises Bosie for carrying his fallen comrade 10 miles on his back, to which Bosia exclaims that he just did what any of them would have done. After asking about Boy's wounds, Pope notices that the wounds are on his back. Despite Lee trying to calm him down, Pope asks again where Bosie was when Turner was attacked. Bosie, horrified, declares that he was there, face to face with the enemy. Recognizing this, Pope tells Daryl that it's human nature to run when it's scary, and that it takes divine power to risk everything for someone else. Pulp praises Daryl for being the first to pull Leah out of the fire, stating that God baptized him in this fire. However, Pulp warns Daryl that there is one rule that he forgot to tell him: never turn your back on your brother. Then he adds that God uses fire not only for baptism, but also for anger. With these words, he throws Bosie into the bonfire and burns him to death for his alleged betrayal. Paul proclaims that Reapers always run into the fire and meet the enemy.
Aaron has a nightmare in which he and Gracie get lost in the woods. The wolf, the savior, and other enemies from Aaron's past surround him and strike him. Aaron wakes up with a fright, safe in bed. That morning, Jerry, after going to the toilet, looks out the window and sees a walker wandering the walls of Alexandria. He notifies everyone. Aaron hears the commotion outside and tells Gracie to hide in the basement. Walkers enter Alexandria through a gap in the wall formed due to a fallen panel. The team lifts the panel back up while the others kill the walkers. In the introductory video of the Commonwealth, a man named Lance Hornsby welcomes viewers to the Commonwealth and talks about the benefits of living in it. He explains that the population of the Commonwealth is 50,000 people, and its governor is Pamela Milton. The Commonwealth clerk turns off the video and gives Eugene, Yumika and Ezekiel and the princess a job and housing assignment. Eugene says they had no intention of staying in the Commonwealth, but the clerk advises them to discuss it with the head of their business. Yumika reads her letter and sees that it is a 6AI Pi invitation to discuss the possibilities of the Commonwealth. Yumika hands the letter to the clerk and asks for a meeting with her brother. Walkers swarm the walls of Alexandria. Rosita, Aaron, Carol and Jerry decide to go to the hilltop to find blacksmithing tools that can be used to strengthen the walls. Maggie and Negan kill walkers in the woods on their way to the supply depot. They argue about the merits of Maggie's plan. Aaron's group stays at the Hilton and discovers that it is crowded with walkers. They recognize the walking former residents of the hilltop. Jerry and Aaron show emotion by killing walkers. Judith tells a gang of boys to stop bullying walkers through a hole in the wall. Vincent pushes her and says Michonne dumped her. Judith puts a knife to his throat. Gracie intervenes. Maggie and Negan arrive at the supply depot and find it empty. Negan offers to return some of the food to Alexandria, but Maggie says they need a lot more food to feed the residents. Negan insists that they return if no one shows up before sunset. Yumika walks into the bakery where her brother Tommy works. Tommy is shocked to see her alive. Aaron's group is looking for supplies in the hilltop. They notice walkers moving in a herd and realize that one of them is a whisperer. Aaron discovers the whisperer and knocks him to the ground, and then rips off his mask. Lydia recognizes the whisperer and tells Aaron not to kill him. Eugene and Stephanie are buying ice cream at an ice cream parlor. The clerk makes a special order for Governor Milton. Eugene asks Stephanie for advice on how to leave the Commonwealth. She offers him help in radio communication with his people, but says it may take a couple of weeks. And the Tongues or the princess informs Eugene that they won't be able to talk to the case manager for 5 weeks. Eugene asks Stephanie if she can give him unofficial access to the radio. Mercer watches them suspiciously from afar. Judith returns home and finds a souvenir she made with Carl broken on the ground. She asks Vincent if he broke it, but he denies it. Rosita finds Judith sitting on the porch with a broken souvenir. Judith cries and says that everyone has left. Rosita comforts Judith. Aaron interrogates the Whisperer, whose name is Keith. He insists that he is the only Whisperer left in the hilltop. Lydia defends Keith, but Aaron doesn't believe him. Jerry and Aaron drag the whale into the root cellar and find other Whisperers there. Keith insists they are the last. Jerry sees Navila's scarf and realizes that these Whisperers helped burn Alexandria. Keith grabs a knife and cuts Aaron, allowing the rest of the Whisperers to escape. Stephanie brings Eugene and Ezekiel and the princess to the train station, which now serves as the headquarters for various Commonwealth agencies. She takes Eugene to the radio room. Yumika catches up with Tommy. Tommy explains that he found the fellowship very early and that he is happy to work as a baker, not a surgeon. Yumika asks if there is an opportunity to bring her people to the Commonwealth. Tommy replies that anything is possible if you follow the rules. The princess sees Mercer approaching the train station and flirting with him to distract attention. Mercer briefly enters into conversation with her, but the more she talks, the more stoic she is. Aaron and Jerry hang Keith from the rafters of the stable and demand to know how many more Whisperers are left. Kit begs Lydia for help. Aaron pushes the walker onto the whale's arm, and then offers to amputate it and prevent infection if the whale tells them where his people are. Carol kills the walker and warns Aaron of the danger that Rage is fraught with. Eugene radioed Rosita in Alexandria and informed her that they were safe. Rosita informs Eugene about the fate of the Whisperers, but says that Alexandria lies in ruins. They're losing touch. Mercer breaks into Eugene and Stephanie and arrests them. Anor the princess is standing in the corridor, also arrested. Negan decides to leave the supply depot and return some of the food to Alexandria. Maggie says their mission isn't over yet. They quarrel, but they are interrupted by the appearance of Gabriel and Elijah. Gabriel suggests they wait for Daryl and Frost. Maggie smiles in agreement. The overseer informs Eugene, Eichel and the princess that they are accused of several crimes and will be expelled if they are found guilty. Stephanie and Hornsby enter the room. Hornsby orders the overseer to release Eugene's group. Stephanie tells them that Hornsby can protect them from exile, but they will still have to pay for their crimes. Keith recovers from the amputation and thanks Carol. He says that he saw one of their people come out alive from the cave where the Alpha kept his hoard. They understand that he is talking about a horse. Aaron suggests they look for her first thing in the morning. They're leaving Hilltop. Coney and Virgil are running away from something in the woods. Virgil offers them shelter in a nearby house, but Coney insists that they keep running. They sense the approach of something and run. Coney and Virgil run up to the house. Coney pushes the front door and they hide inside. Walkers swarm at the front door. Back in Alexandria, Carol and Aaron argue about the strategy of finding Coney. Magna notices that Kelly is missing. Kelly rides a horse along the road to find the horses on her own. Coney and Virgil search the house and reconvene in the living room. Virgil tells Coney that the house is empty, but Coney shakes his head. Virgil reminds Coney that she hasn't slept in a few days and persuades her to sleep, but Coney worries that it's not safe in the house. She decides to search the house again. In Meridian, Carver tortures Frost and demands to tell him where his people are. Frost doesn't say anything. Pope orders Daryl to be interrogated. Daryl holds Frost in a chokehold and orders him to reveal the location of his friends. Frost refuses. Daryl cuts off Frost's finger and again demands to know the location of his friends. Frost finally reveals the location of the supply depot. Pope sends Leah to scout the place with a team of Reapers. The horse searches the house. She opens the first aid kit and sees a pair of wild eyes looking at her through a crack in the wall. She runs to Virgil and tells him that they are not alone.
We are Copper.
Daryl, Leah, Carver and a team of Reapers approach the supply depot. Daryl gently shakes the hanging telephone wire to warn Maggie of their arrival. Maggie looks out the window and sees that the wire is swinging. The Reapers break into the supply warehouse and search the house. There's no one there. Leah orders them to search the whole city. Kelly finds an abandoned Coney camp in the woods. She reads Kanya's notebook and cries. Virgil checks the first aid kit and finds nothing. He wonders if Coney was hallucinating. Coney refuses to stay in the house and leaves the room. Someone slams the door behind her, cutting her off from Virgil. A feral man is running towards her on all fours. Coney runs into the room and slams the door behind him. The savage is beating against it. The Reapers are searching another house. Leah finds some wet, bloody bandages, which indicates that someone has been there recently. Daryl notices a trap door under the carpet and quietly pushes the carpet. He offers to follow Maggie's group outside. Carver suspects something and quarrels with Daryl. Leah sends Carver upstairs to check the rooms again and warns Daryl not to make Carver angry. Maggie, Negan, Gabriel and Elijah are listening from the basement. Carol, Rosita and Magna find Kelly in the woods. Kelly tells them that she has found Coney's camp. Magna reads Coney's notebook, from which it turns out that Coney and Virgil were followed. They continue to search. The horses keep the door closed until the savage is quiet on the other side. She enters the basement and sees human bones scattered all over the floor. The shelves rattle when the savage wakes up and bursts into the room. Coney hides in the cracks between the walls. Virgil runs into the room and slams the door. The savage hits the door from the other side. Coney peeks through a hole in the wall and sees Virgil in the next room. She knocks on the wall, attracting Virgil's attention. The savage sneaks up on Virgil and attacks him. Virgil is fighting a savage. Hungry, he shouts. Coney hits the wall, distracting the savage for a moment. Virgil stabs him in the chest with a knife. Coney continues pounding on the wall. Virgil plunges his knife into the wall, narrowly missing Coney. Coney punches the wall with his hand. Virgil realizes it's Coney and pulls her out. Daryl and Carver are arguing. Daryl criticizes the Reapers' attack plan and cunningly includes information about the Reapers in the conversation, knowing that Maggie's group is eavesdropping. Daryl admits that the only reason he joined the Reapers was Ali's concern, but says he will follow Pope out of fear. Carver notices the trap door and opens it. The basement is empty. Maggie's group quietly gets out of the basement and runs away. Carol's group searches for Coney until nightfall. They reach the intersection. Kelly chooses a direction. Wounded and weak, Virgil gives Coney his knife and urges her to run. Coney refuses to leave him. They hear the creatures moving upstairs and run out of the room with their weapons at the ready. The savages attack from all sides, and Virgil gets stabbed by one of them. Coney has an idea. She smears herself with the guts of walkers and opens the front door, letting all the walkers inside. The walkers devour the savages, ignoring Coney, who blocks Virgil in the corner with her body. Coney and Virgil stumble out and fall. Two walkers run out of the house. Kelly shoots them with a slingshot and tearfully reunites with Coney. The Reapers are returning to Meridian. Carver informs Pope that Maggie's group has escaped. Paul says that he continued to interrogate Frost after they left and received all the necessary information. They see Frost tied to a pole, now he's a walker. Pope talks to Carver alone until they go into the house. Leo looks at the tree. Maggie, Negan, Gabriel and Elijah are heading to Meridian. Maggie suggests that Negan return to Alexandria after Negan expresses skepticism about their chances of defeating the Reapers. Negan realizes that he can't afford to lose a single fighter, so he makes a deal to help Maggie if she agrees not to kill him. They discover a walker who was Ligie's sister's best friend. Maggie swears revenge and develops a plan. Eugene and Stephanie clean up walkers in an abandoned building as punishment for breaking the law. Eugene asks Stephanie if Hornsby can be trusted. Stephanie assures Eugene that Hornsby can help them. And/or the princess cleans the neighboring building of walkers. And coughs and writhes in pain. Stephanie turns to Hornsby for medical help. They see Mercer escorting a young, well-groomed couple through the grounds. A Commonwealth officer tells Yumika that they will have no problem finding a job for her, given her credentials. Yumika makes it clear that she is not going to stay and demands a meeting with friends. The officer says her friends will be released as soon as they have served their time. Yumika demands a meeting with Governor Milton. Daryl walks along the Meridian and sees the Reaper coming out of the food shed. The search patrol is returning. Gabriel delivers the eulogy while Maggie, Negan and Elijah stand over the grave of Elijah's friend. Maggie sends Gabriel on a mission and tells him to single-handedly kill all the Reapers he finds. She orders Negan to find 4 walkers to make masks out of them. The search patrol informs Pope that they have found no trace of Maggie's group. Pope yells at the Reapers for not being able to find their enemy. Lee chastises Pulpa for shouting at his soldiers. The cop tells Lee to do another sweep with Daryl. Daryl and Lee are searching the outskirts of Meridian. Daryl praises Leah for standing up for her team. But she defends Pop's behavior and says he's like a father to her. Maggie puts a mask on the walker's face and walks slowly through the woods. Negan gives her tips on how to move like a walker, and then releases the walker tied to a tree. The walker goes to Maggie, but quickly loses interest in her. Maggie stumbles over a rock, attracting the attention of a walker. Elijah quickly ties him back up. Negan approves of Maggie's progress. Gabriel watches Meridian through binoculars, gathering information for Maggie. He sees the Reaper's servant, Muncie, walking away alone. Gabriel watches Muncie walk through the cemetery, tending the graves. Muncie senses someone's presence and grabs a knife. Gabriel prepares his sword, but Muncie leaves without incident. Yumika meets Tommy at the train station and is surprised that he did not become a doctor. Tommy tells Yumika that he is happy with his life and makes her promise to keep his real profession a secret. She mentions that she has an appointment with Governor Milton. Soldiers appear out of nowhere and take Tommy away. Wearing a walking mask, Maggie moves with a small group of walkers and successfully corrals them. Negan congratulates her. Elijah asks Maggie if Negan has changed. She replies that it is difficult to understand whether he really helps or acts out of selfish motives. Yumika confronts Hornsby and demands to know where Tommy is. Hornsby assures her that Tommy will return home that night and that he will soon free her friends. He admits that he helps her in the hope that one day she will repay him in kind. Daryl and Lee find a man hiding in the woods. He tells them that his wife is seriously injured. Leah radioed Pope to find out what they should do. Paul orders him to beat the man. Negan empathizes with Maggie because of the loss of the community as a result of the massacre. Negan discusses why he took action against Rick's group. He felt that he had failed to protect his people who wanted answers to questions. Maggie asks if he would have done differently. Negan says he would have killed every single one in her group if he knew it would protect his people. Maggie recoils from his answer, but Negan says that they must do everything possible to protect their people. He adds that their plan will only work if they are honest with each other. And Ezekiel returns to Eugene and the princess, feeling rejuvenated after the treatment. Hornsby assigns Eugene and Stephanie to a new position, and then tells both Ezekiel and the princess to go with him. Gabriel meets with Maggie and says that what he was looking for is still in Meridian. He does not talk about his close encounter with the priest. Eugene and Stephanie see walkers approaching the well-groomed man and woman they saw earlier with Mercer. They are busy kissing in the gazebo. Eugene and Stephanie are killing walkers. The man Sebastian yells at them for interrupting his dates and says he has private security to protect them from walkers. Stephanie kills another walker. Sebastian yells at her for spattering his girlfriend with the blood of walkers. Eugene confronts him and hits him. Hornsby Mercer rushes to him as the soldiers surround Eugene. Yumika is staying at Governor Milton's office to meet. Max, the secretary, gives her a warm welcome. She answers the phone and informs Yumika that she needs to reschedule the meeting because Governor Milton's son, Sebastian, has been attacked. Hornsby visits Eugene in his cell and explains that the only way for Eugene to get out of prison and help his friends is to reveal the name and location of his community. He starts to leave. Eugene asks him to wait. Maggie, Negan and Elijah put on walking masks and lead the herd to the building. They open the doors of the building and release a huge herd of walkers. Walkers join another herd on the road. The stranger leads Daryl and Leah to the building where his son and wounded wife are hiding. Leah tells the man to run away with his son and never come back. When they leave, the wife begs them to kill her. Lee aims his rifle, but can't do it. Daryl shoots a woman with a crossbow, and then tries to tell Lee the truth about his friends. They are interrupted by a radio call calling them to return to Meridian. Maggie, Negan and Elijah lead the horde to the Meridian. Elijah sees his dead sister among the walkers. His lips are trembling with excitement. Maggie quietly holds his hand. The Reapers are watching the horde from the top of the Meridian perimeter wall. Lee notices that the horde is moving along an unusual route. Daryl offers to take the horde away from Meridian. Pulp accepts Daryl's strategy, but sends Wells instead. Wells leads the horde away from Meridian and informs the Reapers that he is doing well. Walkers suddenly appear from all sides, and the walker stabs him with a knife. Wounded and surprised by the attack, they catch up with him. He screams when the walkers devour him. A storm is raging in Alexandria. The group hides in Aaron's house as the windows and doors rattle. Navila looks after the children, and Coney takes care of the wounded Virgil. Rosita sees a piece of the perimeter wall flying down the street. Leah insists on helping Wells, but Pope says he's already dead. Leah realizes that Pope sent Wells as bait to confirm his hunch that Maggie controls the horde. Leah reminds Pop that Wells was a member of their family, but Pope says Wells is destined to die. Back in Alexandria, Aaron holds a meeting in the kitchen of his house and reports that a storm tore a panel off the wall and that the fire at the windmill attracts walkers. He suggests splitting into teams to fix the wall and stop the fire. Aaron and Magna volunteer to put out the fire, while Carol, Coney and Kelly go to fix the wall. Rosita stays with Barbara, Diana, Lydia, Virgil and Navila to protect the house and protect the children. Pope asks Daryl about Maggie. Daryl says Maggie is a good shot and advises Pope to look for her among the trees. Carver radioed Pope that the horde had returned. Pulp looks at the horde and declares that it will never reach their gates. Explosions begin to be heard when the horde steps on the mines installed around the perimeter. Rosita, Diana and Lydia reinforce the windows with boards. Judith comforts Gracie and gives her advice on how to be brave. Gracie fights imaginary walkers with a sword. A walker gets through the window and grabs her. Judith cuts off a walking arm. Barbara and Virgil hide the children from walkers in the windows. Walkers surround the house, having penetrated into it through the second breach. Rosita and Lydia are leaning against the front door. Diana rushes to the rescue when the walkers pounce on them from the other side. The horde continues to be blown up by mines outside the Meridian. Leah laments the loss of people, but Pope says that every war has its victims. Daryl looks through binoculars and sees Maggie's group in masks. Maggie and Gabriel separate from the horde and make their way to the sentry. Daryl joins Powell at the post and offers him a cigarette. He deliberately drops the matches and stabs Powell as he reaches for them. He shows Maggie and Gabriel where to get inside. Daryl breaks the lock on the door of the food shed. Negan and Elijah support the horde. The explosion sends shrapnel into their limbs. Daryl returns to Pope, Leah, and Austin. Leah tells him that the walkers are running away, but Daryl points out that they are actually moving forward. Negan and Elijah lead the horde to the wall. Maggie and Gabriel make their way to Meridian through a pile of burnt garbage. Maggie discusses further actions with Gabriel and asks him to wait for her signal. In Alexandria, walkers almost broke through the front door of the house. Rosita runs out into the street and single-handedly deals with all the walkers in the yard, while the rest of the residents are anxiously waiting inside. Gabriel sneaks into the building and heads straight to the secret compartment. He gets inside and finds what he needs. Daryl, Lee and Anchetta gather on the roof. Anchetta shows a multiple rocket launcher that he designed. Daryl quietly asks Leah if she still believes in Dad. Leah admits that it's hard for her to watch Paul hurt people who are dear to her. Daryl reveals that the enemies they are fighting are actually his friends. He begs Lee not to kill them. Leah freezes, digesting his revelations. Paul joins them on the roof. Maggie starts the truck and rushes to the main gate. She jumps out of the truck, allowing it to crash right into the gate. Walkers pour in through the gap. Paul orders Ankisha to start the installation. Leah says they'll end up killing their own people, but Pope thinks it's their time to die. Antia lights the fuse. Daryl pulls out knives to attack Pope. Leah stabs Paul in the neck with a knife. Daryl throws the knife into the Anchetta and extinguishes the fuse. Maggie is fighting the Reaper in the courtyard. From the next window, Gabriel starts shooting the Reapers with a rifle. The floor is crawling on the ground. Leah stabs him again, killing him. Daryl reaches out to escape with Leah, but she instead tells everyone on the radio that Daryl killed Pope. She tells Daryl that she will do anything to protect her family. Daryl escapes moments before Carver and Boone arrive. Leah orders them to close the gates and kill everything inside the walls. In Alexandria, walkers begin to break through the front door and windows of the house. Rosita tells everyone to go upstairs. R.J. Herschel runs up the stairs together, while Barbara and Navila grab the babies and follow them up the stairs. The wounded Virgil is helped up the stairs by Diana. Soon after, Lydia orders the baby to be taken care of and to go upstairs, while she holds the door. Meanwhile, Judith searches for Gracie and finds her in the basement looking for a weapon. Judith finds her pole and they run upstairs, but the walkers have already entered the house. Judith and Gracie return to the basement and lock the door. Stormwater floods the basement. Maggie, Daryl and Negan are fighting Reapers and walkers in the yard. Leah on the radio orders the Reapers to retreat. After the yard is cleared of the Reapers, she launches missiles at Maggie's group below. In Meridian, Lee fires a launcher at walkers as they flood the camp. The Reaper attacks Maggie, but then hits her with an arrow. Maggie hides in the building and meets up with Negan and Elijah, who was injured by shrapnel. She takes them to the infirmary, where they hide in a secret room. Carver searches for them and receives a radio order from Leah to kill everyone he finds. Back in Alexandria, Rosita and the others fight the walkers near Aaron's house. Diana reports that Judith and Gracie are missing. Judith and Gracie are trying to get out of the basement, which is quickly filling with water. Walkers break through the door to the basement. Iron and Jerry regroup with the others after an unsuccessful attempt to put out a fire at a windmill. Magna and Connie leave to plug the gaps in the perimeter, while the others work on extinguishing the fire. Aaron hears Gracie's emergency whistle and goes looking for her. The Reaper is aiming at Gabrielle from the window. Daryl stabs the Reaper with a knife and strangles him to death. He hides at the moment when Leah enters the room and discovers the body of her friend. He quietly leaves the room. Gracie blows the whistle as the basement fills with water. A walker attacks Judith and Gracie. Iron breaks the basement window, jumps inside and starts killing walkers. Through the window, he lifts the girls to safety. New walkers are entering the basement. Gabriel collides with Mansea and pulls out his sword. Mansi predicts that Gabriel will not kill him, as he did not kill him in the cemetery. Gabriel is surprised to learn that Mansi knew of his presence at the cemetery. Mancha asks if Gabriel listens to God more and urges Gabriel to revive his faith. Gabriel hears a noise outside the door and stabs Mansei in the belly with a knife. Carver chases Maggie down the hallway. Negan and Elijah ambush him. Carver wounds Elijah, beats Maggie to the floor. Negan hits Carver with a heavy bell. Maggie is preparing to deliver a fatal blow to Carver. Daryl intervenes and insists that they use Carver as leverage, despite Elijah's vow to avenge his sister. Daryl gets in touch with Leah on the radio and offers to talk to them. Hearing Gracie's whistle, Rosita sends Lydia to investigate, while she fights with the walkers surrounding the house. Aaron is hanging on pipes in the basement so that walkers don't get him. Lydia finds him and runs for the rope. She attaches the rope so that Aaron can get out of the basement on all fours. They're going to help put out the fire. Daryl, Maggie, Negan and Elijah meet with Leah and the remaining Reapers. Daryl offers to free Carver if the Reapers leave Meridian, but vows to kill them if they return. Leah rejects his offer and says the sniper will shoot them if they don't let Carver go. Daryl reluctantly lets go of Carver. Gabriel shoots Carver in the leg and informs Leah over the radio that he killed her sniper. Leah accepts Daryl's terms and begins to leave with the two Reapers. After Elijah tells her that their people must be avenged, Maggie shoots them in the back and kills the remaining Reapers. Leah runs away. Daryl tracks down Leah, but lets her escape. Maggie's group is loading supplies onto a wagon. Maggie returns to the church where they left Alden. Maggie enters the church and discovers that Alden has converted. She cries, piercing his head with a knife. Maggie buries Alden in the woods. Negan joins her and guesses that she always planned to kill the Reapers, despite Daryl's attempts to negotiate. Fearing that she will do the same to him, he decides to break up with the group. Maggie joins Daryl and Gabriel at the campfire. She reports that Alden is dead and Negan is gone. Daryl's group returns to Alexandria. Jerry is disappointed to see that their numbers have greatly decreased. Maggie's group distributes supplies in Alexandria and reunites with everyone. Daryl hugs Coney. Lydia is visibly upset to learn that Negan has left. Gabriel informs Aaron that Alden is dead and that many other people have died. A caravan of Commonwealth troops is approaching the gates of Alexandria. Residents are preparing weapons for defense. Eugene jumps out and informs the residents of Alexandria that the troops have come to the rescue. Commonwealth paratroopers unload supplies in Alexandria. Eugene introduces Horn as the winner. Hornby shares his admiration for what they have built and offers to provide labor and materials to help them rebuild. It also offers another option for those who are interested. 6 months have passed. Maggie and Elijah are standing guard at the hilltop. Hornby is waiting outside the gate with a group of Commonwealth soldiers. One of the soldiers approaches Maggie and demands that she open up. Maggie says it shouldn't be like this. The soldier takes off his helmet. It's Daryl. Yes, it is, he says. Daryl, Judith and RJ crawl along a dark corridor filled with cages with walkers. They are attacked by a walker, but retreats when Daryl drives him away. It's just an actor, and they're in a haunted maze. They come out of the haunted maze and meet Halloween at the Commonwealth Carnival. This is the 30th day of their new life in the Commonwealth. Carol and Magna carry trays of food at the carnival. A girl named May introduces herself to Judith and offers to show her around. Daryl remarks to Carol that it will take him some time to adjust to life in the Commonwealth. Everyone applauds when Governor Pamela Milton joins the carnival. Daryl and Carol chat with Kelly and Connie, who works as a reporter for the Commonwealth newspaper. Carol watches Ezekiel from afar and notices that his throat is bothering him, a sign of an exacerbation of cancer. Gabriel picks up the cook for the night so Rosita can rest after a late shift. Daryl and Rosita leave their apartment to attend a training session for Commonwealth soldiers. And Ezekiel plays with the children Jerry and RJ and gives one of them an old Shiva collar. Carol asks Ezekiel how he feels and insists that he is doing well. Carol sneaks into the hospital and looks through Ikea's medical records. Tommy, who now works as a doctor, catches her doing this, but decides to help her. He notices that Ezekiel is unlikely to be rescued in time, given his place on the waiting list. Mercer divides the recruits into pairs, instructing them to kill walkers in their house of death, working together and using the same knife. Rosita and her partner, Green, run to their house, and Daryl and his partner, Jake, run to a separate house. Daryl fights the walker and drives Jake forward. Later, Daryl sees Jake struggling with a walker, but decides to go after another walker. Rosita pulls the walker away from Green, who then kills him. Later, Rosita gives the knife to Green, and then kills the walker with his own limb. Jake screams for help when he is attacked by a walker. Mercer shoots the walker and looks at Daryl for abandoning his partner. Mercer praises Rosita and Green for their teamwork. Judith and May are looking through albums at the music store where the princess works. May buys an album for Judith after learning that Judith has no allowance. Carol overhears Max refusing the wine that Hornsby chose for the upcoming Pamela Masquerade Ball. Hornsby throws the wine in the trash. Carol is looking through receipts at an abandoned liquor store. She tracks down the house at the address indicated on the receipt for the purchase of expensive wine. She fights the walkers by searching the wine cellar. Mercer, Daryl and Rosita go to the forest to train with Sebastian. Mercer releases a group of walkers that Sebastian must kill. Sebastian fights the walker, and Daryl kills him with a crossbow. Sebastian angrily tells Daryl that he could handle him. Pamela passes by and looks at Sebastian with disappointment. Mercer advises Daryl that sometimes it's important to set each other up to win. At home, Judith and Ergie ask Daryl if they can live permanently in the Commonwealth if their mom doesn't know where to find them. Carol brings Hornsby a case of expensive wine to serve at the masquerade. In exchange, she asks him to reschedule a friend's surgery. Impressed by Carol's resourcefulness, Hornsby says that before making any promises, he will see how Pamela likes the wine. Magna is working in the kitchen at the masquerade ball and chatting with Sally, another waitress who is preparing a plate of fruit. After filling the wine glasses on the tray, Magna starts serving the guests at the party. She exchanges brief pleasantries with Yumika and Tommy, who are guests. Tommy tells Yumika that he is uncomfortable with this extravagant scene, and drinks a whole glass of wine, after which he brings a second one. The red carpet at the entrance to the masquerade ball is crowded with people, including the princess and several Alexandrians and Hilltoppers, who watch as dressed-up guests arrive at the ball, including Lance Hornsby and Sebastian Milton. Everyone claps and cheers for Mercer's arrival. Mercer communicates with the princess in the crowd and invites her to join him as a guest. At first, the doorman refuses to accept the princess, since her name is not on the list, but Mercer remains firm in his decision to bring her with him. An excited Lance approaches Pamela with a question about wine, clearly proud of his findings, to which Pamela answers perfectly and offers to discuss his idea with Alexandria later, much to Lance's disappointment. Connie interviews Pamela and asks what her father, the former US president, said about the class gap at the party. Pamela evades the question and introduces her to Carrie, the woman who won the lottery last year. The waiter tries to approach Pamela, but Max pushes him away. The princess recognizes the waiter as a soldier whom she beat up in the train carriage. Pamela gives a speech and opens a portrait of her father. The waiter, Tyler, holds Max under the knife and accuses Pamela of lying. He says he lost everything because of one mistake, and claims that people like him don't mean anything to Pamela. Max tries to calm Tyler down. He lets her go and runs away. Daryl drives Tyler into a haunted maze and convinces him not to commit suicide. Sebastian follows them inside. Daryl instructs Sebastian to bring Tyler to Pamela, which allows him to take responsibility. Sebastian brings Tyler back to the masquerade and gets credit for catching Tyler. Resist the Commonwealth. Visibility for workers. Equality for all. Tyler shouts as he is led out of the room, adding that there are thousands like him. Pamela orders Hornsby to find out if there are any more resistance members. Yumika and Max hand out money and a non-disclosure agreement to the party guests to ensure their privacy. Carol asks Hornsby how Pamela liked the wine. Hornsby says it was a good first step and hints that he would like to get something else from Carol. Mercer orders Rosita to interrogate Magna about Tyler. Rosita asks Magni questions about Tyler. Magna says she didn't know Tyler, but believes his words about the Commonwealth. And Ezekiel visits Carol and gives her a box that used to belong to Henry. Carol asks Isla again how he's doing. She cries when she assures her that he is fine. Daryl is going to work. He gives Judith a record player to put on her new record. Daryl, Rosita and a team of Commonwealth soldiers storm Tyler Davis's apartment in search of the rebels. Rosita finds a secret room at the back of the closet filled with resistance propaganda. Eugene wakes up in bed with Stephanie. He officially gives her the key to his apartment and says he loves her. Stephanie reciprocates. Eugene comes out of Stephanie's apartment and sees her waving to him from the balcony. Eugene tells the princess that he confessed his love to Stephanie, and she reciprocated him. He worries about the next step, but the princess advises him to relax. Eugene is waiting at the ice cream van for a date with Stephanie, but she never shows up. He calls Stephanie's apartment and gets no answer. A man comes out of the building. Eugene slips inside before the door closes. He knocks on Stephanie's door. No one answers. Inside, Stephanie quietly and hurriedly gathers her things. The horses are arguing with the newspaper editor about an article about Tyler, who threatened Pamela at a masquerade. She insists that they tell the truth. They retold Pamela's press release, but her editor warns Coney to stick to the line of conduct. Eugene investigates Stephanie's disappearance and goes to the communications department at Union Station. On the monitor of the radio room, he learns that Stephanie was called to work due to illness. Connie Kelly tries to talk to Tyler at the hospital where he is being held, but a soldier guards Tyler's room. Mercer closes the door in their faces. Rosita or Wids comes into Stephanie's apartment to check on her health. When no one answers, they take the keys and open it. Rosita informs Eugene that Stephanie is not in the apartment. She offers Eugene to help fill out a missing person report at the station. Hornsby Carol ride the wagons outside the walls of the Commonwealth. Hornsby explains that he hopes to enlist her help. They arrive at a farm that supplies the Commonwealth hospitals with opium. A man named Moto informs Hornsby that farmers are delaying the opium harvest in exchange for higher prices. Coney and Kelly come on a military walk for a newspaper article. The logistics officer directs them to the carriage, and Mercer jumps into a military truck. The princess visits Eugene at home and discovers that his wall is covered with evidence about Stephanie's disappearance. Eugene explains that he almost gave up on the investigation until a chance encounter gave him hope back. During the flashback, Eugene encounters a man who left Stephanie's house the night he was looking for her. He asks him if he remembers anything about that evening. The man rudely explains that he just went into the building to fix a clogged sink and does not remember seeing Stephanie. Eugene tells the princess that he was following a man named Roman Calhoun. He declares that Roman is not a plumber. In the flashback, Eugene keeps an eye on a warehouse disguised as a plumbing store, which Roman visits at night. Eugene tells the princess that the same 4 people enter and leave the warehouse at odd hours, and sometimes a 5th person appears, who is probably the organizer of the group that kidnapped Stephanie. He says that one of these people, who was nicknamed the Man in the Hat, took all of Stephanie's things out of her apartment. He vows to expose this group. Hornsby Moto discussing business while fishing. Carol notices that one of the opium farmers is watching them closely. 2 Commonwealth soldiers are running away from walkers in the woods, one of them is wounded. A wounded soldier manages to hide in an abandoned pickup truck while a walker attacks another soldier. Mercer cleaves the walker's head, saving both of his soldiers. He catches up with Coney and Kelly and asks if Coney got everything she needed for her story. Coney leaves the script and demands to tell what Tyler is accused of. She also asks if Tyler is being punished because his hostage at the masquerade, Max, was Mercer's sister. Mercer warns her not to dig any further. Eugene and Stephanie are watching Roman's house. They break into Roman's apartment when he goes out for a run. Carol tells Hornsby that she talked to one of the farmers and found out that Moto is pocketing the money that Hornsby gives them for a pay raise. She says he also beat farmers to get their silence. Hornsby orders the soldiers to arrest Moto. Eugene and the princess search Roman's apartment and find a suitcase with knives and pistols. They hide when they see Roman coming back. Eugene and the princess try to sneak away, but they are caught by a neighbor who called the police after seeing that they had entered the building. Both attackers were arrested and sent to prison. Mercer discovers that Tyler has been transferred and tells the nurse that Tyler had no right to be transferred without his permission. She replies that obviously someone had permission to do this. He punches the wall in anger and leaves. Hornsby visits Eugene and the princess in prison and assures them that there is an affair. The plumber who was sent to Stephanie's house to fix the sink. He says Roman has agreed not to press charges. But they have to promise to leave him alone. Eugene tells the princess that the conspiracy is deeper than he thought. The princess begs him to abandon the investigation and insists that Stephanie just broke up with him. At home, Kaylee tries to cheer up Coney, who is unhappy that she has to write an article about Mercer. Coney finds a note that someone slipped under the door. This is a list of names, including Tyler's name. Eugene sneaks into a secret warehouse and hears voices upstairs. To his surprise, he runs into Stephanie. Hornsby shows up and tells Stephanie he'll sort it out. Eugene cries, realizing that Stephanie used him to get information about his community. Hornsby apologizes for the deception, but notes that Eugene's group is now thriving in the Commonwealth. Eugene burns the evidence of his investigation in a bonfire. A woman approaches him from behind and says she needs to talk. She uses nicknames that only he and Stephanie used with each other on the radio. Eugene turns around. Female, Max. She tells me that she is the real Stephanie. Max explains to Eugene that she met him on the radio, which she assembled from spare parts. She says Mercer, who is her brother, discovered her illicit affair and warned her that Hornsby was investigating the communication breach. Max tells Eugene that she didn't meet him together because Hornsby might have discovered her. She says she didn't say anything when she saw Eugene with Stephanie because they seemed happy together. During the flashbacks, Max comes in to see if there's anything Pamela needs. Hornsby comes to Pamela with interesting news. Back in the present, Max tells Eugene that Hornsby talked about Alexandria to Pamela, but she doesn't know what they're planning. Still experiencing Stephanie's betrayal, Eugene bursts into tears and runs away. Hornsby and Pamela are going to Alexandria. On the way, Pamela shares her fears that the inclusion of new settlements in the Commonwealth will lead to the depletion of its resources. Hornsby claims that Alexandria, Hilton and Oceanside are perfect for his concept. Aaron and the committee meet Pamela's column when she arrives in Alexandria. Aaron tells Pamela a brief history of Alexandria. Mercer asks how they keep Alexandria safe. Daryl says they fought many battles to protect her. Pamela remembers how in the old days she crossed paths with Dina, the founder of Alexandria. Daryl says Diana always rebuilt Alexandria when she fell. To Hornsby's chagrin, the walker breaks through the wall. Daryl kills him. Pamela says she's seen enough. During a routine visit to the hospital, he is surprised to learn that his operation was postponed to an earlier date. Pamela is relaxing on the beach in Oceanside. Hornsby informs her that Rachel is ready to receive her. Rachel is giving Pamela and Hornsby a tour of the West Side. She explains that Maggie has decided not to enter into an alliance with the Commonwealth and that Oceanside will only cooperate with the Commonwealth if Maggie agrees to it. On the way to Hilltop, Hornsby reprimands Aaron for not being able to prevent the walkers from appearing in Alexandria and not knowing about Maggie's decision. Hornsby warns that if Maggie refuses, he will no longer help Alexandria. Their column stops. Maggie kills walkers on the road ahead. Pamela, Daryl, and Commonwealth soldiers help Maggie kill walkers. Pamela introduces herself. Maggie asks Daryl why he trusts the Commonwealth. Daryl says he doesn't really trust them, but admits it's good to have the resources to rebuild Alexandria. Iron makes the case for the Commonwealth and asks if Maggie will join them. Hornsby suggests an impromptu hunt. In the woods, Pamela invites her Maggie to hunt together. During the hunt, Pamela confesses to Maggie that she was initially skeptical about visiting Alexandria, Hilton and Oceanside. However, she admits that numerous city-states fighting with each other for resources are not beneficial to anyone. She offers to protect the Hilton. Carol visits Ely at home and pretends to be surprised when Keel tells her the news about his operation. Realizes that Carol was responsible for postponing his surgery and accuses her of cheating the system. Carol asks if he should die just because the system is broken. Maggie accuses Pamela of autocracy. Pamela claims that Maggie is the sole leader in the Hilltop, but Maggie insists that the Hilltop is run more fairly than the Commonwealth. She points out that Pamela has better cars and a better house than everyone else. Rosita joins Eugene, who is sitting alone on a bench. She comforts him when he tells her that Stephanie broke up with him. Maggie returns to Hilltop with a convoy of broomsticks. Commonwealth servicemen deliver supplies to the community. Herschel helps Daryl unload supplies. Mercer notes that Daryl is beginning to appreciate the Commonwealth, but warns that it is not perfect. Carol and Jerry visit Ezekiel before his surgery in the hospital. The nurse is taken from the hospital or to the operation. Hornsby asks Maggie if she has made the decision to cooperate with the Commonwealth. Maggie asks what he will get from the deal. Hornsby talks about his vision of a thriving network of communities between which citizens can move. Maggie hears the alarm. Residents of the Hilltop run outside to repel the attack of walkers. Walkers break through the perimeter of the Hilltop. Maggie, Elijah, Lydia, and other Hilltop residents are fighting the walkers. Mercer joins them with his soldiers, who quickly shoot all the walkers. After that, Diane tells Maggie that they need the help of the Commonwealth. Maggie watches as Mercer lines up his soldiers. Mercer reminds Daryl that he is always being watched. Daryl gets in line with the soldiers. Maggie approaches Pamela and officially refuses the offer of the Commonwealth. When Pamela asks why, Maggie replies that everything is always worth something. Hornsby frowns. Eugene visits Max and apologizes for running away when she revealed her true identity to him. Max asks how he could have been mistaken in thinking that the other woman is Stephanie. Eugene says he wanted her to be real because he was rejected so many times. They start talking about Eugene's affair. They laugh and chat again while Max makes suggestions. Diane tells Maggie that she and several other Hilltop residents are going to live in the Commonwealth. Maggie warns her against trusting the Commonwealth, but Diana says she can't live like this anymore. Hornsby begs Pamela to try to save his plan. Pamela correctly guesses that Hornsby wants to run communities eventually. She agrees to let him continue the community engagement campaign, but warns that there will be consequences if his duties in the Commonwealth are violated. Hornsby enters the forest and fires a pistol into the air. One by one, he shoots the walkers attracted by the sound. Aaron joins him and asks what Pamela thinks about Alexandria. Hornsby says Pamela agrees and that they will bring even more people. He vows to remake the world. Elijah and Mark are guarding the gates of the hilltop. Lydia tells them that she has decided to join the Commonwealth. Elijah notices that many people are leaving. A stranger soaked in blood rides up on a horse and then falls off it. He gives Lydia a map and says there is a massacre going on here and is dying. Maggie studies the stranger's map, but says they don't have enough resources to help whoever sent him. Lydia, Elijah and Mark decide to go to the aid of the strangers group themselves. Maggie changes her mind and accompanies Lydia and Elijah on their mission, while Mark stays behind. On the way, Lydia asks Maggie why she refused to accept help from the Commonwealth. Maggie says that a corporate farm developer once tried to buy out her father's farm, but her father refused their offers, even when they were desperate, and in the end they got back on their feet. She says that the Commonwealth has not been tested for many years and that she does not want to be there when they are finally tested. They meet several converted Commonwealth soldiers and kill the walkers. Maggie's group examines the paratroopers and discovers that they have been killed. Aaron notices them on the road and runs across it. Flashback to a week ago, Aaron visits Gabriel at the Commonwealth Church, where he preaches a sermon. Gabriel encourages his parishioners to open up to each other. Aaron tells Gabriel that the Commonwealth has asked him to help with a new immigration initiative. He asks Gabriel for help in establishing contacts with a religious group of settlers trapped in a complex of buildings. A young man named Jesse tells Aaron that their boss Carlson is ready. This young man is the rider who will later die at the gates of Hilltop. Aaron assures Gabriel that the settlers have been recognized as friendly. Carlson inspects the complex with binoculars. Aaron notices that the building doesn't look as friendly as he was told, but assures Gabriel that Commonwealth soldiers will be with them. Carlson informs them that the soldiers are staying away so as not to scare off the settlers. Gabriel and Aaron refuse to come in, but Carlson says it's out of the question. A woman comes out and collects their weapons before letting them in. The woman directs Aaron's group into a room along a dark corridor. Inside the room, the supervisor, Jan, orders them to sit down. Aaron talks about the fellowship and invites Ian's group to join them. Ian shows them a collection of Skull Raiders who came to kill his group. He fires a pistol and orders them to kneel, fearing that they have come to eat his people. Aaron insists that they are not cannibals, and offers to leave if they are released. And agrees, but Carlson grabs the gun from him and shoots him. Hornsby calls Carlson to his office. Hornsby explains that the convoy with weapons and cargo was heading to 3 settlements when it was captured by a religious group. Hornsby orders Carlson to lead the cargo recovery operation. Carlson tells Hornsby that he is no longer an assassin, but Hornsby threatens to ruin Carlson's life if he refuses. He offers Carlson to take Gabriel and Aaron with him. In the present tense, Carlson interrogates Ian and demands to know where the weapons and cargo are located. Ian says he has no idea what Carlson is talking about. Carlson beats him up. Gabriel punches Carlson, causing the police to handcuff him. Carlson shoots Ian and then runs outside after hearing Jesse running away on a horse. The soldier shoots Jesse, but Aaron punches him in the face before he can fire again. Returning to the house, Carlson discovers that Gabriel has escaped and his guard is dead. After Aaron tells his story to Maggie's group, Maggie wonders why the Commonwealth had so many guns. She looks at Jesse's blood-soaked map to find a route to the Commonwealth. Aaron asks where she got the card from. Maggie says it's the card Aaron gave Jesse, but Aaron says he never gave Jesse the card. In a flashback that happened 12 hours ago, Jesse runs out of the complex to untie his horse. Negan comes out of the woods with a friend named Annie and realizes that Aaron and Gabriel are in the complex. Negan gives Jesse a map of the Hilton and asks him to tell Maggie that Gabriel and Aaron are in trouble. Jesse gets on the horse. Negan and Annie sneak into the building and eavesdrop on Carlson's conversation with Aaron. When Carlson runs outside, Annie kills Gabriel's guard, and Negan cuts Gabriel's bonds. They're running away. Carlson finds a dead guard. Carlson tells the residents of the complex that they are enemies of the Commonwealth because they stole from his community. Negan, Gabriel and Annie are hiding in a room with other residents of the complex. Annie tells Gabriel that she knows nothing about the stolen weapons. Carlson interrogates two hostages on the roof of the building and pushes them off the edge after they insist they know nothing about the stolen goods. One by one, he throws the hostages off the roof. Negan's group hears the screams of the victims falling down. Carlson orders his soldiers to kill anyone who doesn't want to talk. Annie tells her group to stick together and reminds them that they know the building better than the soldiers. A dead Commonwealth soldier lies in the corridor of the complex. Carlson is trying to get in touch with him on the radio. Maggie turns off the walkie-talkie and hides the body with the help of Aaron, Lydia and Elijah. They make their way up the stairs. Carlson looks at the dead hostages he pushed off the roof of an apartment complex. The bodies begin to come to life. He radioed Hornsby to tell him that the place was safe and that they were looking for the seized goods. Maggie, Aaron, Lydia and Elijah hide while Carlson leads the group through the complex, shooting the residents. In the Commonwealth, Carol meets Daryl on her way to work. They make an appointment for lunch. Daryl and Rosita get a task from their boss. Sebastian walks into the police station with his girlfriend. He brags to the soldiers that he is fighting walkers, and invites Daryl to comment on his abilities. Daryl half-seriously claps his hands, causing the paratroopers to laugh. Paratroopers Alvis and Castle distract Rosita and Daryl from their mission to investigate a herd of walkers on the northern perimeter. Maggie's group runs into Annie during a search of the apartment. To their surprise, Negan appears. They are led to a secret room where Gabriel and other residents are hiding. Annie suggests that they split into teams and comb through each floor to rescue the survivors. She leaves with Maggie, and Negan stays behind. Alvis and Castle lead Daryl and Rosita to the northern perimeter. Sebastian joins them and orders Daryl and Rosita to get a stash of money hidden in a house on the other side of the herd. He says he needs money because Pamela has cut off his credit line. Daryl and Rosita reluctantly agree to help after Sebastian threatens their children. Rosita and Daryl cover themselves with the guts of walkers and sneak unnoticed through the herd. They enter the house and find the room where the money is hidden. A woman named April knocks on the door from inside a locked room. She explains that she is the only survivor of a group of people who were sent earlier to find the money. She says one person offered to help her get out of debt if she could get the money. Negan tells Aaron's group that he is married to Aina. Gabriel insists that they did not know Carlson's ulterior motives when they arrived at the complex. Annie contacts Negan on the radio and orders the group to mobilize. Negan sees something disturbing outside the window. The paratrooper drags Herschel inside the complex, discovering that he is hiding in a truck. Negan kills the soldier and saves the ferry. Maggie and Don't hide while Carlson's team continues to comb the complex. Annie finds out that she is pregnant with Negan's child. Negan calls Neparatia to inform her that the soldiers have found Herschel, but he swears to protect him. Maggie asks why I'm not with Negan, even though she knows about his actions. Annie replies that they have all done things they are not proud of, and now they can only try to become better. Herschel asks Negan why Maggie doesn't like him. Negan admits that he used to be a bad person. Herschel points a gun at Nig and guesses that he killed Glenn. Negan confirms that he killed Glenn, but warns Herschel that a pistol shot will alert the paratroopers to their whereabouts. Herschel lowers the gun. Daryl turns on the generator in the garage to power the keyboard. He's fighting off walkers. Rosita enters the key code and enters the room. An alarm goes off, attracting walkers into the room. Rosita destroys the alarm system, and Daryl opens the safe and puts the money in the bag. They're barricading the door from walkers. Daryl's group hears gunfire in the house. Mercer and Carol rescue them. Carol says she found Mercer after Daryl didn't show up for their lunch date. Rosita and April explain that Sebastian sent them to the house to get cash for him. Daryl's group quietly sneaks past the walkers in the house, hiding behind the walkers' guts to hide their smell. April accidentally attracts attention to herself, and she is devoured. The group is killing walkers. Carlson leads the soldiers through the building. Maggie and Annie radio Gabriel and Aaron and propose a plan. Carlson's group storms the apartment and finds nothing. Carlson notices shoe prints leading to the secret room. Before he can investigate, he hears gunshots. Carlson's team chases Gabriel and Aaron on the roof and corners them. Elijah sneaks up and kills the paratroopers. Aaron shoots Carlson, who falls from the roof and lands next to the bodies of the dead hostages. They revive and eat Carlson alive. Daryl's group meets with Alvis and Castle and learns that Sebastian has already sent 30 or 40 people to look for money. Mercer shoots Alvis and Castle, and then orders Rosita and Daryl to give the money to Sebastian, otherwise he will come for them. Daryl and Rosita deliver the money to Sebastian at the police station. Sebastina gives them a small part of the money and leaves. Horn's PSI tries to contact Carlson Parade, but gets no response. Carol visits him to tell him that Sebastian has been sending desperate residents for cash. She understands that Hornsby already knew about this and does not mind. Hornsby says that everyone should contribute and explains that he was just trying to help people who themselves got into a bad situation. Carol pretends to agree. Negan confesses to Herschel that they have unfinished business. He advises Herschel to help Maggie rebuild their community, and then come to him a few years later to settle the score. Maggie tells Aaron and Gabriel that they cannot return to the Commonwealth, but Aaron says Hornsby will want to know what happened. They wonder who hijacked the Commonwealth convoy. Memories of the events of 2 weeks ago. Soldiers from the Commonwealth convoy are lying dead on the ground. The wounded soldier tries to crawl away, the hijacker cuts his throat. This is Leah. Daryl and a team of Commonwealth soldiers investigate Carlson's corpse and the bloody aftermath in an apartment complex. Hornsby interrogates Aaron and Gabriel about what happened to Carlson's team. He doubts their version that the mysterious killers destroyed everyone except them and then disappeared. Hornsby orders the soldiers to comb the area in search of the killers, starting with Hilltop. Mercer's alarm goes off. The princess wakes up next to him and sees that Mercer has already woken up. She asks if he's okay. Mercer insists he's fine. Coney, Kelly and Rosita meet Eugene at his apartment. Rosita tells Coney that Sebastian is sending civilians on deadly missions to get money. Connie shows them a list of names that an anonymous source left at her door. They notice the name of April, the woman who was locked in the safe room where they received Sebastian's money. Connie says they need access to Pamela's files to find more clues. Eugene says he might know someone. Carol drives Judith and RJ to school. And Ezekiel joins her and thanks her for pulling the strings to reschedule his surgery. He asks to show her a new project he's working on, but Carol says she's busy with work he'd rather not know about. Hornsby and his team encounter walkers in the woods. He orders Aaron and Gabriel to deal with the walkers manually to save ammo. They kill walkers with Daryl's help. Hornsby's team is staying at Hilltop. Ezekiel visits Tommy in the hospital and asks him to perform a secret operation to remove appendicitis to a sick friend. He says he has secured an operating area where Tommy can perform the operation. Tommy hesitates at first, but after persuasion from Keel considers this idea. Eugene pays Max an urgent visit to the Commonwealth headquarters. Max takes him aside, fearing that they will be seen together. In an empty office, Eugene tells Max about Sebastian and asks her to steal files from Pamela's office. The cleaning lady comes for them. Max pretends to collect groceries for Eugene and leaves the office. Hornsby and his soldiers arrive at the gates of the Hilltop. He orders Maggie to let them into the Hilton so he can track down the killers who stole the Commonwealth property. Maggie insists she doesn't know anything. Hornsby confers with his soldiers. Daryl suggests talking to Maggie to avoid a deadly confrontation. Maggie tells Daryl that it shouldn't be like this. Yes, it should, Daryl says. He convinces Maggie to open the gate. Max talks to Mercer about Sebastian and asks why he is letting Sebastian get away with responsibility. Mercer points out that he may be removed from office for insubordination if he denounces Sebastian, which will leave the citizens of the Commonwealth defenseless. Max says Mercer has an opportunity to change the Commonwealth, but Mercer doesn't listen. Both Ezekiel and Tommy steal supplies from the hospital. The paratrooper catches them in the act. Hornsby's team is searching Hilltop. Hornsby discovers a hidden truck and suspects that it was this car that left tire tracks in the apartment complex. Maggie insists that the engine is not working. Hornsby connects the starter relay and starts the engine. To his disappointment, it won't start. Maggie orders him to leave before sunset. Both Ezekiel and Tommy are sitting in a room with handcuffs. Carol enters the room and tells the policeman that she can handle the situation. She informs them that they are off the hook, and takes Carol and Tommy to a secret veterinary clinic that he has opened, and brings them to the area where his girlfriend Teresa is awaiting surgery to remove appendicitis. Mercer apologizes to the princess for dissuading her. He says that he killed 2 of his people and hid it. He says it keeps him up at night, but that he would do it again. He wonders if he is not part of the problem in the Commonwealth. The princess offers to figure it out together. Hornsby stops Herschel and asks if he and Maggie have been on any trips lately. Herschel starts looking for Maggie. Hornsby takes out the baseball cap he found in the apartment complex and puts it on Herschel's head. It fits perfectly. Elijah hits the horn's bias themes. Patrolmen run up. The paratroopers surround Elijah. Maggie and Daryl aim their guns at Hornsby. Daryl tells Hornsby to order his soldiers to retreat. Hornsby obeys and leaves the Hilltop. Daryl, Aaron and Gabriel are talking quietly around the campfire, realizing that the soldiers will not stop searching until they find the killers. Daryl suspects they have a plan. The paratrooper informs Hornsby that he has found something, and thanks Carol for inspiring him to build a veterinary clinic. Someone informs IKEA that Teresa's appendix has burst and that she needs to go to the hospital. Tommy says there is no time, and then proceeds to the operation. He stitches up Teresa's abdominal cavity and says her prognosis is favorable. Max visits Eugene and agrees to steal the files. Eugene swears to be by her side and they kiss. Leah cleans a gun in her camp in the woods. The Commonwealth paratroopers find her camp, but there is no one in the tent. Leah sets up an ambush, earlier in 2 of them. Hornsby asks Leah to hold the fire so they can talk. Leah appears out of the darkness with a rifle. Hornsby smiles and says that he has come to offer her a job. Hornsby walks out of a bombed house in Alexandria. We're going back 19 hours. Maggie and Herschel, along with Mark Elijah, leave the Hilltop to find Lydia. Hornsby tosses a coin, and the soldier calls tails. Hornsby smiles horribly, looking at the coin, and the soldier asks what the task is. Horst cryptically replies that they will find out soon. Eugene and Max wake up together. She admits that she is very nervous trying to gather any information about Pamela or her son Sebastian. Daryl, Aaron and Gabriel raid houses with the Commonwealth Army. Daryl says they need to throw them off the scent and plant a false trail, that there is an arms trade going on in Charleston and they need to check it out. Maggie, Herschel, Elijah and Mark are walking in the woods when they finally meet Lydia. Hornsby Lee is making plans to take Maggie out. Hornsby says he wants to see Maggie's corpse. Lydia leads Maggie and her small group to the shelter where Negan and Annie are staying with other people from the apartment complex. She tells Nine and Annie that she's going to come back to find Hornsby and end him forever. Locusts drown them out when they gather in a flock. Hornsby radioed Daryl's group and told them to come home. Daryl opens fire on the soldiers, and Gabriel gets a return bullet. Walkers are attracted by the noise they make. Daryl finds one soldier alive and points a gun at him. Daryl asks where Hornsby is, otherwise he'll let the walkers eat the soldier alive. The soldier says he's 10 miles away and is on his way to kill Maggie. Max is at work with Pamela and tells her that the Founders Day budget has a surplus of $50,000. Max suggests the idea of using the surplus to create a scholarship fund. Pamela immediately dismisses this idea. As soon as Pamela leaves the office, Max rummages through her papers. Sebastian arrives, upset that his mother ignores him. He sees the papers in Max's hands and begins to suspect her. Maggie, Mark, Elijah, Lydia arm themselves and set up the tripwire bombs. Hornsby's scouting party enters the house and puts them into action. Maggie tells Mark and Elijah to follow their footsteps back to camp so she can find Hornsby and end him once and for all. As soon as Mark and Elijah get up, Mark is shot in the head. Emmy comes out of the bombed house with a gun pointed at Maggie. Maggie pushes Lydia and Elijah to start running. Locusts are rummaging through the house, and Amy. Hornsby arrives at the scene and discovers a dead Mark, 3 dead soldiers and a missing Leah. He contacts her on the walkie-talkie, and Leah tells him that she is doing this task in her own way. Daryl, Gabriel and Aaron head towards Maggie and Hilltep. They stumble upon Leah's old camp. Maggie tells Lydia and Elijah to get back to everyone. They say they'll distract the walkers from Maggie so she can find Leah. Max shows Eugene and a group of people the papers she received from Pamela's office. They'll recognize April's name on the list. Appears from the keel and offers Coney to write a brochure that will tell about Pamela's corruption. Coney agrees to write it. Maggie sees Leah and starts shooting. Lee runs away and comes back. She hits Maggie on the head, knocking her out. Maggie's hands are tied, and Leahy says she's been waiting for this moment for a long time. She tells Maggie that she's going to kill everyone she cares about. Hornsby is now hunting both Maggie and Zalia. Maggie loosens the restraints on her wrists and slaps Leah in the face. They fight, and Leah strikes Maggie several times. Leah pins Maggie to the ground, and when she goes to finish off, Daryl shoots Leah in the head. At the moment when Daryl shoots Leah, Hornsby appears, and Hornsby also gets a bullet in the face from Daryl. Daryl and Maggie jump out of the window and return safely to their hideout. Hornsby vows to take everything from Maggie and Daryl. Pamela arrives at the office and throws a stack of brochures on Max's desk. The headline reads "Pamela is lying to you." Hornsby takes over the ocean site. He gathers everyone who lives there and ties their hands behind their backs. Hornsby throws a coin. Judith talks about the chaos and death she witnessed growing up in this harsh world. About those whom we loved and lost on the way to finding ourselves and each other in a world full of not kindness, greed and the walking dead. In the present, Daryl, Maggie, Father Gabriel and Aaron are on the run. Commonwealth Deputy Governor Lance Hornsby, whose army captured the Allied settlements of Hilltop, Oceanside and Alexandria, is hunting for them. "That's the end of it," says Hornsby. Negan and his pregnant wife don't even report that Maggie Herschel's son is safe from Hornsby's asshole. Gabriel claims that they should return to the Commonwealth and first pick up their people, and then deal with Hornsby together. Surrounded by Aaron, he says they will never pass through military posts. Gabriel fears Hornsby's men will harass their families, including Aaron's daughter Gracie and Grimes' children, Judith and RJ. "Rosita, Jerry, and we have to hope they can handle it," says Aaron. But for the preacher, who is raising baby Coca with Rosita, hope is running out. And the longer we have this debate here, the more at risk our families are at home. Maggie says their people are here too. They need to find Hornsby and kill him before he gets to anyone. Daryl understands that they can do both. Hornsby had never seen Negan's face before. Wearing a Whisperer mask made from the flesh of walkers, Negan sneaks up on Hornsby's troops scouting the area and kills one soldier. He takes the soldier's rifle and hands the walkie-talkie to Daryl, and then steals their car, embarking on a high-speed pursuit of the Commonwealth military. No signal prevents Hornsby from summoning an unauthorized soldier, Daryl Dixon, according to an emergency protocol, who ambushes and deals with the rest of the soldiers. Hornsby sends one soldier to search for a signal, and sends the rest for a car driven by Negan with the order to shoot to kill. Daryl dodges, almost knocks Hornsby down. When Hornsby's soldiers open fire on Negan's captured car, Daryl knocks them off the road, allowing Negan to escape. In the Commonwealth, citizens protest in Union Square at the office of Governor Pamela Milton. The mob demands justice for April, one of the indebted citizens of the Commonwealth, who was sent to her death during a robbery staged by the greedy and rotten Sebastian Milton. Money for life, reads the inscription of one of the protesters. Justice for April requires another. The crowd chants, "We want justice." They are encouraged by the journalist Coney, who anonymously published an article in the newspaper exposing Sebastian's crime. Coney's friend and Pamela's lawyer, Yumika, towers over the crowd from the governor's office. "This is what we wanted." Kelly asks her sister about the anti-Milton movement disrupting the Commonwealth. Coney replies, "This is what change looks like." And Ezekiel joins the chorus of voices supporting the protesters. Rosita and Magna agree that they should be ready to help the people of the Commonwealth if things go awry. According to Magna, it's only a matter of time, but she doesn't want to leave yet. These people need help. Rosita decides, nothing will be decided until everyone returns. General Mercer, walking with the authority of a military commander dressed in red armor, is on the spot and monitors the situation. When his soldiers radio the SOS signal, he orders the paratrooper and Spinoza to equip themselves, while the governor is on the intercom assuring the Commonwealth crowd that she will find the real culprits and bring them to justice. Whistleblower Max guesses that Pamela's son is hiding. Their struggle for justice and equality for all is just beginning, and Max wants to bring it to an end. "Then we'll do it," Yumika tells her. Mercer meets Negan at the Commonwealth transit point. He says that Daryl sent him with an order to ask for Mercer. Negan says he's looking for their mutual friend April. When the other guards leave the room, Negan tells Mercer why he's really here and that Daryl sent him. In her apartment overlooking the square, Carol takes care of the children. Keeping a close eye on the commotion outside the window, Carol notices something is wrong. Shira, aka Fake Stephanie, sent to deceive Eugene and Roman Calhoun. Carol hides the children from Hornsby's spies. When Shira and Roman don't find anyone inside, they go to the school to look there. In the square, Negan is surprised by the Commonwealth when he runs into Jerry. "I'm here to save your asses," Negan tells him. Outside the walls, Maggie and Annie deal with a Commonwealth soldier, destroying his walkie-talkie before he can contact reinforcements in the Commonwealth. Inside the walls, Negan informs Carol of the situation and tells her that Hornsby has targeted the children to lure out their people. It is decided that Jerry will take the children to the attic where the supplies are stored and inform the others. They should be ready to move at his signal. "Ready for what?" Negan asks. "It doesn't look like a place where you can just walk out of the gate hand in hand." "That's why you and I will try to get insurance," Carol replies. Inside City Hall, April's parents lead a crowd of protesters to the steps of Governor Milton. They oppose Pamela over their daughter's death, demanding Sebastian after Yumika calms down the situation. Pamela asks her lawyer if her friend Coney knows who wrote the revealing article titled "Pamela Milton is Lying to You." Amid shouts of "Down with Milton," one of the protesters wrote in blood-red paint on the walls of the Milton Commonwealth, "The killer." Yumika meets with Magna and tells her that Pamela suspects something. Yumika is worried about Tommy, about her brother, and doesn't want to leave without him. 5 miles from the perimeter of the Commonwealth, a huge swarm of walkers is moving in the direction of the community. By order of Governor Milton, a cordon has been put in place. "Break the curfew," the soldiers warn, "and you will be arrested for your own safety." While Jerry takes the children to a safe room, Carol and Negan search for records and diagrams in the city planning office. They're looking for Sebastian's hideout. Outside of the Commonwealth, Maggie apologizes to Daryl for having to shoot Leah to save her. "Glenn would like me to keep an eye on you," Daryl replies. They meet again with Gabriel, Aaron and Annie, who report that they are being bypassed by Hornsby's people. When Maggie asks if there is a way to get close to them from behind, and does not answer that there is a way not to notice their approach. Sewage system. Moving through the tunnels underground, Daryl comes up with a way to get Hornsby's soldiers down to them. In the Commonwealth, the missing door scheme leads Carol and Negan to Sebastian hiding in a secret room. The Commonwealth, her child, Sebastian tells them, "I'm just a prop." Negan convinces the spoiled brat to go with Carol. That evening, Carol and Negan try to get Sebastian out of the Commonwealth in disguise, as the protest has subsided and turned into a candlelight vigil for April. They go out onto Commonwealth Street, where, unsurprisingly, he is immediately recognized. Negan stays behind to prevent the angry crowd from getting to them, and Carol quickly takes Sebastian to safety. For violating the curfew, soldiers use tear gas, and the crowd disperses. Rosita and Mercer find themselves in an unpleasant situation outside the walls when the horde makes a surprise attack. Yumika tells Pamela that the protesters, including her friends, were gassed. Yumika accuses the governor that his actions expose her guilty, but Pamela knows that her son is not a murderer. Carol passes Sebastian to Pamela. She hugs her son and then slaps him in the face for humiliating her and himself. "What do you have to do with all this?" Pamela asks, furious. "This story is a lie," explains a snorting Sebastian. "People need someone to blame, and I'm an easy target." Carol says they can help each other. "I'm looking for Hornsby. He's hunting my friends under your flag. I need your help to stop him." The governor doesn't know anything about it, and she doesn't understand how it will help her. "If your son didn't do what he's accused of," Carol says slyly, "then someone else did it." In the sewers, Hornsby's soldiers are hunting for Daryl and Maggie. Their group ambushes the soldiers, which leads to a tense confrontation. Daryl jumps out of the ambush and presents a knife to Hornsby's throat, who in turn smiles. Judith reminds us that the voices of our lost loved ones help save their lives. She remembers all the relatives and friends who did not finish the journey and did not get to the place where she is now. She knows she will finish it for them. The Commonwealth Army and Daryl are in a state of confrontation. Mercer, Carol and Pamela arrive, and Carol explains that she has made a deal with Pamela, according to which Lance will live. Daryl, in a rage, stabs Lance in the arm with a knife and pins him to the ground as he leaves. Carol explains to the group what deal she made with Pamela. Pamela will provide them with everything they need to recover, leave them alone and forgive all their crimes if they are willing to tell the people of the Commonwealth that Lance, a corrupt official, not Pamela and Sebastian. Negan and Annie are unhappy with the deal, but Daryl and Maggie are willing to try. Lance tells Mercer that he has always controlled the Commonwealth Army, not Mercer. Pamela explains to Lance that his life in the Commonwealth is over. Lance gets upset and warns her that she won't be able to control the Commonwealth without him. Pamela announces to the residents of the Commonwealth that Lance has been caught and accuses him of all Sebastian's misdeeds. Eugene asks Max to join his group when they leave, but Max sees Sebastian and tells Eugene that he can't leave yet. Aaron tells Maggie that he will stop by Oceanside and tell everyone about the new plans. Maggie advises him to stop by Alexandria earlier than Hilltop because it's in better shape. Daryl loads weapons and supplies into a bag. Aaron says goodbye to Gracie, and Carol says goodbye to Lydia. Daryl tries to give Judith Rick's gun, but she doesn't want to take it. She is waiting for peacetime, when no one will need weapons. She's mad at Daryl because she wants to stay and help fight like her parents would. Carol realizes that Ezekiel is not going with her group and remains in the Commonwealth. Carol is heartbroken, but knows she can't stay with him. Pamela and Max are working with Sebastian on his speech, which he must deliver to the residents of the Commonwealth. Annie and Negan do an ultrasound before leaving the Commonwealth to check the child's health. Negan wants to stay so that Annie and the baby can get real medical care. Annie reminds him that people rely on them and they can't stay here. Daryl packs up and puts on his old vest. When he goes to look for Judith, she is not there, and RJ explains that Judith has left. Daryl finds Carol and asks her to help find Judith, who ran away because she's mad at him. Max tells Eugene that she has to do something to stop Sebastian. Max wants to use Lance to stop Sebastian, but Eugene is very doubtful. Eugene visits Lance in his prison cell, and Lance says he can't and won't help, because if you chase the Miltons, you'll lose. Gabriel reads his last sermon in an empty church and discovers that Judith is hiding inside, wearing Carl's hat. Shira and Roman kill 2 workers, and Daryl finds Judith inside the church. Max is left alone with Sebastian and secretly starts recording him. Sebastian gives a speech at a Founders' Day party and plays a recording of his grandfather giving some advice. No one knows, but Max has swapped the tapes, and a recording of Sebastian's voice is playing over the speakerphone, admitting that he and Pamela are corrupt. The people erupt in anger and try to attack Pamela. Sebastian notices Max in the crowd and starts chasing her. During all this horror, walkers break into the Commonwealth, and Mercer takes Pamela into custody. Daryl loses Judith in the confusion, and has to use Rick's gun to kill the stalking walker. When Daryl gets to her, she asks him to return her father's gun to her and starts fighting the walkers, keeping Daryl next to her. Sebastian catches Max and tries to push her into the walker, but the walker stumbles and falls on Sebastian, who gets bitten. Judith shoots the walker attacking Sebastian with her father's gun, but it's too late. Judith reminds us of the choices we made to get here. About the good decisions and the ones we regret. How we had to adapt and change in order to survive living among the walking dead. While Pamela Milton is mourning the death of her son, she is already discussing with Mercer her new insidious plan. She believes that Mercer's sister, Max, wanted the best and, most likely, did not try to cause the death of Pamela's son. Therefore, her plan involves putting all the blame on Eugene. Mercer orders to round up each and every one of Eugene's accomplices and bring them in for questioning. Mercer attracts even his own friends and acquaintances. Mercer immediately goes in search of Eugene, starting with the interrogation of Rosita. Mercer treats her very badly during the interrogation, which further alienates Rosita from him. But perhaps Mercer is not just pretending to be a touchy. Things will get even worse for all of you, he tells her as she laughs and walks away. When Aaron sees a group of walkers walking along the trail, Jerry tries to convince him to choose another path. However, Aaron insists that they go ahead. After Mercer's interrogation, Daryl and Rosita meet at the church to help Eugene. They're trying to hide Eugene until they can get him out of the Commonwealth, but there's one big catch. Eugene won't just leave. I can't leave without my sweetheart, he tells them. Jerry stumbles and injures his knee. Aaron, Lydia, Jerry and Elijah set out to deliver supplies to Oceanside, but on the way they stumble upon a hellish amusement park that looks like a castle. There are walls in the park, which, according to Aaron, are reliably protected. With a broomstick and Sebastian's corpse, he starts tossing and turning, and Pamela just leaves. The princess argues with Mercer about saving Eugene's life, but Mercer believes that Eugene will get a fair trial. When Aaron and Lydia stand guard at the shelter where they found shelter for Jerry's knee, Aaron tells her that he was married before and that his husband died, but he coped and lives on. He tries to comfort Lydia, saying that she can also move on without Henry and find a new love with Elijah. The soldiers still find and take Max into custody. Mercer tries to convince Max to accept Pamela's pardon and blame Eugene. Max tells Mercer that their father would be ashamed of him. She expresses a desire to stay put and continue her attempts to see the end of Pamela Milton's career. Elsewhere, Eugene doesn't listen to Daryl and refuses to leave, even though he knows he will be executed if he stays. The princess begs him to leave, and he asks her if she really believes that Mercer is a good person. Pamela goes to visit Lance. Pamela blames Lance for Sebastian's death because he released walkers into the community. Lance begs her forgiveness, and Pamela tells him that maybe she will use his coin to determine his fate. When he thinks Pamela has forgiven him, she brings a zombified Sebastian. Lance is confused when she leaves a knife and a corpse in the room with him, and then leaves. The princess tells Mercer about her terrible childhood and compares it to life in the Commonwealth. She tells Mercer she's leaving, but she knows he's not a monster. During an evening conversation around the campfire, a horde of walkers bursts into them. The whole group is confused. Lydia and Aaron try to fight off the group, but there are too many undead. One grabs Lydia's weapon and tries to take it away, and soon we see one climbing the wall and the other turning the door handle. Aaron mistakenly believes that they are dealing with whisperers at this moment. He knocks one of them to the ground and rips off his mask. Although this is not a mask, but the real skin of the creature. When the horde is finally destroyed, the 4 survivors talk about new walkers. Maybe there are other species, Aaron suggests. I hope not. Rosita and Daryl inform Eugene that Max has been caught. Eugene says goodbye to his friends and is about to surrender to Mercer. He surrenders to Mercer, telling him that he alone is responsible for the recording, and Max has nothing to do with it. Mercer orders Eugene to be put in jail. When Rosita is packing up and about to leave the Commonwealth, Pamela's men attack her and kidnap her. Judith reminds us of her mother's words that the living would be nothing without the walking dead. Now we have the meaning of life and reasons to connect. It is no longer possible to be completely alone in the world, and in order for life to make sense, you need to find something worth living for in such a gloomy world. And Ezekiel finds Carol at the diner packing a bag to take with her when she leaves. When Carol turns to talk to Ezekiel, he's gone, and the broomstick men are trying to kidnap her. Carol goes on the run and hides in the Commonwealth. The broomstick men attack Daryl, and Daryl kills one of them. While he fights off the second, the first person turns. Carol, trying to hide, enters the house and discovers that Daryl was attacked. The transformed one bites the second attacker, and Daryl kills them with a blow to the head. Yumika interrupts Pamela during a business meeting, demanding to tell her what's going on with her friends and family. Pamela informs Yumika that all her friends have been expelled. To reunite with his friends, Yumika will have to blame Eugene. When Yumika doubts, Pamela threatens Tommy's life. Daryl wants to turn to Mercer for help, but Carol doesn't trust him. They decide to find Lance inside the Commonwealth and use him to get information about where Pamela took the children. Yumika goes straight to Tommy, she is worried about her brother's life. Tommy tells Yumika to give up Eugene to save the rest of the group and himself. Yumika understands that she cannot accept such a decision, and she is ashamed that her brother can accept it. Yumika runs into Coney, who followed the man who tried to kidnap her to the hospital after she stabbed him. Coney tells Yumika not to follow the man, as it is too dangerous, and that she will follow him if he leads her to the children. Connie and Yumika say goodbye, knowing that this may be the last meeting. Daryl and Carol break into a prison inside the Commonwealth to find Lance. When they get to his room, they find a zombified Sebastian, whom Daryl immediately kills. Carol demands that Lance tell her where Pamela hid the children, but Lance says he will only show her the place where the children are. Daryl tells Carol to leave with Lance when the guards sneak up on them from behind and start attacking them. Carol doesn't want to do this, but walks out the door, taking one last look at Daryl before leaving. Pamela is informed that Lance has escaped, and when she checks Lance's room, she discovers that Walker Sebastian has been killed, and there is a coin in Lance's head. Carol and Lance go on the run, pursued by the Commonwealth Army. Yumika comes to Eugene and tells him that she has no choice but to do what Pamela wants. He says that everything is fine and that he is worried about their friends and they should do something to help them. She thinks it's hopeless, but Eugene is adamant. Lance takes Carol with him to a previously Commonwealth infrastructure project. The project was curtailed after numerous collapses and declared unstable. Inside, Lance is almost destroyed by walkers until Carol saves his life. Walkers pounce on Carol, and Lance abandons her for his own safety. But Carol eventually manages on her own. They run away, return outside, but they are overtaken by the Commonwealth Army. Daryl stays and destroys the army. Carol's heart is grateful that she has seen Daryl again, but at the same time is hardened by Lance's act. Yumika is forced to act as a prosecutor against Eugene. Pamela watches Yumika give a speech at Eugene's trial. Yumika begins her speech, and although it starts with what Pamela wanted, she gets confused and says she is defending Eugene because he was wrongly accused. Pamela gives her a death stare. Yumika throws Pamela's speech at her feet. Lance informs Daryl and Carol that there is a train coming out of town. Daryl tells him they don't need him anymore. Lance starts to panic and says that they can work together, that this is a new era for them. But Daryl and Carol disagree with him. Lance really only cares about himself and has become a danger to Daryl and Carol. This is the end of the road for Lance. Daryl tells Lance that he can go into the woods alone or Daryl will kill him. When Lance leaves, he turns around and points the gun at Daryl and Carol. Carol, without batting an eye, shoots Lance in the neck with an arrow. Lance Hornsby dies, and Carol and Daryl get in the car and drive away. The Commonwealth Army is transporting all the friends and acquaintances of Eugene, Daryl and Carol. The army injects them with something to calm them down during the trip. Judith reminds us how important it is to keep hope alive. Without hope, the struggle for survival will be meaningless. Maggie, part of a group that was abducted by the Commonwealth Army. She manages to break the zipper binding her wrist. She frees Gabriel, who frees Rosita, but when they are about to jump out of the back of the truck, Maggie catches. Maggie takes the soldier's machine gun, he shoots the driver and smashes the truck. The soldiers are dead, and Maggie falls out of the truck and watches as a Commonwealth caravan passes by, in which all her family and friends were. Gabriel and Rosita lose consciousness from jumping out of the truck and, waking up, find that walkers are trying to eat them. After killing the zombies, they hear that everyone is looking for them. Ezekiel, Negan, Kelly and don't wake up and discuss where Gabriel, Rosita and Maggie might be. A man gets on their bus and informs everyone that they won't see their children if they don't follow the rules. Rule number 1, no one has a name. When Negan's group splits into 2 parts, everyone manages to stay together, except for Annie, who is taken to another place. Maggie is left alone after being separated from Gabriel and Rosita. The child, a walker, is being chased by Maggie, who can't bring herself to kill him. She just avoids him and speeds up her pace. Rosita wants to separate from Gabriel and follow the column, but Gabriel refuses. When the walkers attack, Rosita dislocates her arm, and Gabriel has to put it back in place. In the distance, Rosita hears the train whistle and starts running towards it. Daryl and Carol watch as the train pulls into the camp with jeeps and motorcycles. While they are watching, the soldiers bring all the captured horses that have been assigned to Category 2 and put them on the train. Daryl and Carol are going to follow the train to save Coney and the kids. They steal a jeep and they manage to get ahead of the train. Now we just have to wait. Maggie hears in the distance the whistle of a train approaching a motorcycle. A motorcyclist, a Commonwealth soldier, stops next to Maggie, who takes him by surprise. Maggie kills a soldier, and at that moment a baby walker tries to attack her. She hugs him to her to put an end to his suffering in life. Daryl and Carol drive up in a jeep and find Maggie sitting in the middle of the road, holding a dead zombie baby in her arms. Carol comforts Maggie when Gabriel and Rosita stumble upon them. Daryl finds a dying Commonwealth soldier and asks him where the train is going because he desperately wants to find the children. Gabriel recognizes him from the church before the fall. The man tells them that their friends have been expelled and will work on the railway. He explains to them that they have to follow the train to find them. He tells them that the designation 2 for Coney means that no one will ever see her again. Kelly and Ezekiel watch as 3 people who tried to escape from a labor camp are shot. The train gets stuck when the switch doesn't want to move, and the conductor tries to radio Outpost 22. He is stopped by Maggie, who holds a gun to his face. One of the soldiers realizes that something is wrong, and shots are fired between Daryl, Maggie and Carol and the Commonwealth Army. The soldier grabs Coney and puts a gun to her head. Coney strikes and she manages to escape. The soldier jumps on the motorcycle, but Daryl is right behind him. When the soldier crashes, Daryl deals with him. Carol and Maggie question the train conductor, who tells them there is a map on the train. When everyone goes to see the map, the train conductor kills himself out of fear of being caught helping Daryl and Carol's group. In the labor camp, Negan talks to Ezekiel, who still hasn't forgiven Negan. Negan needs Iskol's help to give the people in the labor camp a reason for hope, so that they all rise up and escape. Negan has a plan, but he knows he won't make it out alive. Rosita tells the group that radium is working again. Rosita communicates by radio with Outpost 22, saying that the train was ambushed and she needs help. On the radio, they are informed that there are no free patrols to help, and they give them coordinates on how to get to Outpost 22, and inform them that this is a former settlement where people lived called Alexandria. Maggie's group realize that their close friends have been taken there. Maggie informs everyone that Pamela underestimates them and they will get in there and save their friends. Judith's voice reminds us that any world can be dark and broken, and that the face of death will one day become our own face. A group of survivors work in a labor camp under the supervision of guards. The princess points out Tyler Davis to IKEA and says that Tyler can be useful for their mission, and she is still angry at Tyler for taking Max hostage and does not trust him. Negan spots Annie and fights with two guards trying to get to her. When Annie attacks the guard, he knocks her down, not knowing that she is pregnant. Daryl and Carol are watching what is happening. Aaron, Jerry, Lydia and Elijah are pleasantly surprised when they encounter Luke and Jules, who warn them that Oceanside has disappeared. Luke explains that the Commonwealth Army came and destroyed everything. During Eugene's trial, Pamela speaks emotionally at the trial. Yumika realizes that she will not be able to get a fair trial over Eugene. The trial is interrupted by a knock on the courtroom door. Daryl and Carol find a group of Negan and Ezekiel in a labor camp. They split up into small groups to try to save everyone. They still haven't found the children. Ezekiel has difficulty finding those who could support his escape. The warden threatens Negan, but he believes he may have found a Commonwealth soldier capable of compassion. This soldier stands up for him in front of his boss, and later allows him to cast shadows at all. Daryl and Connie go down the sewer pipe. At this time, Maggie and Carol sneak into their old house. They run into a security guard, and Carol knocks him out. A group of walkers approaches Aaron and Jerry's group at the same time when they hear the sound of engines in the distance. They know that the Commonwealth Army is close. Yumika tells Max and Eugene that she needs to talk to Mercer. She's going to tell Mercer that Pamela kidnapped the princess and put her in a labor camp. Yumika needs Mercer to testify against Pamela, but he refuses. The trial is coming to an end, and Mercer just watches without saying a word. Eugene stands up and addresses the court and society. Eugene is found guilty.
Guilty of aggravated murder.
Soldiers burst through the doors of the labor camp. They raise everyone up and take them outside. It turns out that Negan confessed that he himself was plotting an escape, and the warden wants everyone to witness his death penalty. The warden decides that Annie must die with Negan. When the gun is pointed at Annie, Negan, and Ezekiel stands between the gun, Annie, and Negan, the others follow his example. The chief orders the soldiers to shoot them all. One soldier, who, as Negan thought, has compassion, orders the rest of the soldiers to lower their weapons, and he points his gun at the warden. The warden grabs Kelly and puts a gun to her head. Daryl and Connie sneak up on him from behind, and Daryl knocks out the warden. In the old house, Maggie thinks she's going crazy because she keeps hearing Hershel's voice. Maggie and Carol follow the voice and find a soldier guarding Hershel. They kill the soldier and untie Hershel from the chair. Rosita runs in and asks where the cook is. The cook isn't there, and Hershel doesn't know where she's been taken. Lydia, Elijah, Aaron, Jerry, Luke and Jules cover themselves in blood and mingle with the horde of walkers just as the soldiers approach. The soldiers do not understand that this is not just a walking thing, and pass by. Lydia accidentally drops the knife on the ground, but suddenly the zombie falls on purpose and picks it up. This, apparently, is the version of the zombie that is smarter than the rest. Elsewhere, during the fight, Negan prepares to kill the warden, but is stopped by Rosita, who wants to find out where her child is. The warden does not answer her, and she then takes a zombie soldier and tries to intimidate him with a bite to get information out of him, but he is adamant. As a result, she feeds him to zombies. When Eugene is taken back to prison, Mercer blocks his way and decides it's time to intervene. Mercer tells Eugene that it's time to flip the script, and removes the handcuffs from him. The 23rd episode of The Walking Dead begins with Judith as we look back at the entire Grimes family. She says that her brother Carl dreamed that they would all live together in peace. Negan is with Maggie. He asks her what the plan is to destroy Pamela. He says that he and she can do it alone, they don't need others, and she replies that they are not us.
There is no we.
Maggie hugs Herschel and says she loves him. Negan's wife hugs him and tells him to be careful, she will hold the line, but he better come back in peace. Judith announces to Daryl that she is going with him, but he refuses. She reminds him that this is not the future that her brother wanted or that her mom and dad fought for. Daryl gives in, but tells her she has to stay by his side. Mercer returns Eugene to Max and Yumika. Eugene tells Mercer that he will never forget what he did for her. Mercer tells them to stay put until he gathers enough troops to go after Pamela. A horde of zombies is heading towards the Commonwealth, among them Aaron and the others covered in blood. Negan and Ezekiel are talking on the train. Negan says he never thanked him for standing under the machine guns and saving him. Negan asks why he did it. And Ezekiel says there are many reasons, it's too easy for martyrs to die. The fact that he lives and does something positive will help Iko cope with anger, he does not want to live the rest of his life in bitterness. The dead came for him, but he was smiling. The war has come for him, but he is smiling. Cancer, but he's smiling. He's trying anyway. Ezekiel asks why Megan gave his name and not his own. Negan replies that he wanted his family to tell a good story about him, that he did something right for a change, saved all of them, not himself. He knows that they are all better than him. Meanwhile, Maggie listens to all this from the other side. Daryl tells Judith that her brother Carl, her mother and her father would be proud of her. She says she would like to spend more time with her family. Daryl says that when it's over, he'll tell her a lot of stories about all the people who love her. The princess contacts Mercer on the radio and informs him that she is on the train, returns to him, and people are with her. They're going to destroy the broomstick. He tells her that if she can return these prisoners to him, they are witnesses, then he can destroy Pamela. The alarm sounds, this horde is heading for the Commonwealth. Those traveling inside the horde decide they need to separate, and when they see a trailer near the city, they see their chance. They try to get into the trailer, and when Lydia reaches out to grab Elijah, the walker bites off her hand. Mercer tells Max to follow him as Roy approaches. He tells her that his girlfriend, the princess, is coming back and she will bring her friends with her. The blocking procedure begins. Max hugs Mercer before leaving. Jerry and Aaron are trying to cope with the hysterical Lydia, they need to have surgery on her arm, otherwise the infection will spread. Aaron reminds her that he's done it, and she'll do it, too. Machine guns are firing, the horde is out of control.
All units retreat.
Meanwhile, Eugene is locked in a room and hears footsteps approaching. Someone knocks on the door and asks him to open it. Eugene unlocks the door, but hides behind it. When the policeman turns his back on him, Eugene hits him with a flashlight and knocks him out. In the trailer, Lydia is in pain, she tells Aaron that they need to leave. She says Elijah is waiting for them. Jerry tells her that she has lost a lot of blood. Jerry promises her that he will find them, they have lost enough, but he will go alone. Aaron says he's sure he'll find them and then come back. Our heroes who were on the train are now underground and making their way up to the main hall. Daryl sees the doors with locks and chains and realizes that it is a trap. Shots are fired all around, Carol, Daryl, Judith, and the others are ambushed by Pamela's soldiers. Pamela comes out, grabs a machine gun and starts shooting. It hits Judith right in the upper chest. Carol and Maggie continue to shoot and try to get a broomstick. Daryl is distraught and says it's time for them to leave. Pamela knows she shot Judith and screams, "You did it." Vicar opposes Mercer and takes him into custody for his plan to eliminate Pamela. Eugene, whom we love, is back. He goes outside and destroys the soldiers. These are the new walking climbers, and they won't let a stupid wall knock them down. Suddenly, the gates of the Commonwealth open, and a horde of walkers enters. Vickers goes to talk to Pamela. She informs them that the dead are in the Commonwealth. They climb the walls and fill it. Our new large group of heroes is in the city, and soon they realize that the paratroopers are no longer following them, as a horde of walkers has broken into the city. Meanwhile, Daryl runs with Judith in his arms, trying to find a safe place for her. Daryl gets into an alley. Judith looks at him and says, "Dad." Daryl brings Judith to the hospital and starts screaming for help. As a result, he is knocked out by soldiers, and she gains strength to go close the doors in front of a horde of walkers. In the end, both lose consciousness on the floor, and Judith does not receive the necessary help. Things are not going well outside. Luke is bitten by a weaker, and the others are fighting and trying to survive. Daryl is in the hospital, wakes up with a bandage on his head. Carol is now in the ward with the others and Luke is not in the best shape. Judith lost a lot of blood. They are crying in the ward, because it looks like Luke will not survive. Carol says that there are no more doctors and nurses and medicines, since Pamela took everything and left everyone to their fate. Daryl asks about Mercer. She says he's being hunted by a team. At this time, Luke dies. Daryl tells Carol that his blood is suitable for anyone. When he was a kid, his mom sold it for money. He wants to give Judith blood. At the other end of the room, Luke is covered with a sheet. Mercer is in a padded cell. Max and the princess come to the rescue and free him. Maggie loads up the weapons, and most of the heroes leave together in a military van. Meanwhile, Rosita, Gabriel and Eugene destroy the walkers and hear the baby crying. Rosita arranges ninja fights with walkers and saves the child. Aaron communicates by radio with Gabriel, who informs him that everything is fine with the children. They're going to meet at the hospital. Daryl is with Judith. He gave her some blood, but she still doesn't look good. He takes her into the room and barricades the door to help Carol. Walkers are getting smarter and hitting glass windows with stones. Daryl, Carol, Maggie and others are working feverishly to kill the walkers and get to a safe place. They enter Judith's room through another entrance, grab a stretcher and struggle to get to safety. Eugene, Rosie and Gabriel are trying to free themselves from the crowd of walkers. Eugene and Gabriel climb the pipe to the wall, and Rosita follows them. She falls and, thinking that she is finished, starts kicking and going at them. She climbs into an ambulance, and then jumps on a pole on the wall and gets to a safe place. They finally get Judith to the doctor. Lydia is also being assisted with an amputated arm. Aaron tries to comfort her, but then tells her that sometimes she will still feel that the hand is there. She asks him if he has any hope, and he replies that yes, he is not giving up. Meanwhile, Maggie has not seen Negan for a long time and goes in search of him. Negan with a rifle goes after Pamela. She asks him what his purpose is. He replies that there is no goal, and he does it for her. He says that if Maggie kills Pamela, then OT will come after her, so he's going to do it himself. He says he's been thinking about how she feels about seeing him. Negan says he is very sorry that he took her and her son away from her. She takes the rifle and walks away, but then turns around and asks if he's coming. Eugene approaches Rosita and tells her that he can take the baby out of her arms for a while if she wants to rest. He tells her that he can take her to Oceanside with him in the summer. He has a surprise for her. During all his research on parenting, he came across a scientific study that says that teaching a child to swim helps him in many ways, including self-confidence. She shows him that she was bitten on the shoulder when she fell. She then tells Eugene not to cry and to gather his strength. She tells him that everything will be fine. He tells her that he loves her very much. She replies that she loves him too. Max asks Eugene if he's okay. He replies that everything is fine, and does not tell her about Razit. Daryl and Carol are with Judith when she wakes up. Daryl calls her an ass-kicker. Shots can be heard in the distance. This Commonwealth shoots everyone who tries to climb the gate. Mercer tells them that this is not their battle, Ezekiel says that this place is worth saving, and he will not let them fall without a fight. Aaron agrees, as does everyone else. Outside, people are crying and shouting for the Commonwealth to open the gates, but Pamela is on the other side and doesn't want to do it. Negan and Maggie have a good chance to deal with her. Mercer comes out with his team. Pamela screams for him to be arrested, but suddenly sees what kind of support he has. Mercer tells her that she shot a militia member and brought the dead to their doorstep, and now left thousands of people to die. People are begging to let them in, as the horde is getting closer. Gabriel goes forward to open the gate. Pamela orders him to be shot. Daryl asks the Commonwealth what they are doing. Daryl says they have one enemy, and it's not the Walking Dead. Gabriel is given a key. Mercer arrests Pamela and tells the guards to handcuff her. The gate opens and everyone flows in and closes the gate just in time. Pamela approaches the gate and sees that one of the walkers is Hornsby. She approaches him. Maggie shoots him and saves Pamela, and then says, "Now we will take back this place." Part of the horde is inside the gate, and everyone is trying to fight them off. They turn on music to gather walkers in one place. Walkers are heading to the estate. They blow up the estate, and the horde burns up like toasted marshmallows. Pamela is in a prison cell. Carol says they made a disgusting decision to let her live, but at least they don't have to worry about who gets her house. Negan is sitting outside when Maggie approaches him. She says she thought about what he said and thanks him. She says she knows now that she will never be able to forgive him. Glenn is gone, and she will never love anyone like that again. She remembers his smile and what he made her feel. But when she looks at Negan, she only sees the bat coming down on his head, as well as the blood and his call to her. She hears how Negan taunted her while Glenn was dying. Therefore, she cannot forgive him, but she is grateful to him for saving her son, and she knows that he is trying. She tries to and doesn't want to hate him anymore. He can stay. All she has are her memories, and she doesn't want to remember Glenn like that. All the survivors are sitting at the dinner table, including Judith, and enjoying a meal together. Everyone raises a toast to Luke. Daryl looks at Negan and nods his head. Rosita looks around at everyone and smiles. Gabriel walks up to her and asks if she's okay. She replies that everything is fine and she just wants to remember this moment. She whispers in his ear. He looks at her and begins to choke. Gabriel takes Rosita's hand and tears roll down her face, but she smiles at him. Judith sees this exchange and realizes that something is wrong. Carol and Maggie take Rosita to the room where Coca is sleeping. Rosita lies down on Scott's bed. Maggie and Carol leave the room. Daryl watches them from the doorway. Gabriel is kneeling by the bed and reading a prayer. Gabriel gets up and tells Rosita that he will see her again someday. Rosita kisses the cook, and Gabriel takes her away. Eugene sits down next to Rosita and says he wouldn't be the person he is today if he hadn't met her. She puts her hand in his and says she's glad it was him. Rosita closes her eyes and dies. Eugene begins to cry. A year later, Eugene lays roses at the memorial wall, on which Rosita's name is written. Mercer and Zeke speak to a gathering of people. Daryl is there too, and he looks absolutely clean, better than we've ever seen him. The horses see him and they embrace. Judith is given a gift from Negan. This is a compass with the initials G and a note. Negan writes that he has always helped him find his way, and he returns it to her so that he can help her guide her dreams. He thanks her for letting him use it. Carol and Daryl sit down and he tells her that she took Hornsby's job and made it better. It's like a happy place where everyone hugs each other. She cries, and he says they will never see each other again. She tells him that he is her best friend and they hug. They go to Daryl's motorcycle, near which Judith. He says that if he finds her parents, he will bring them both. She tells him that he deserves a happy ending too. Daryl says he will definitely come back. Daryl then hugs Ezekiel. Leaves them alone, and they hug for the last time. Daryl tells her that he loves her, and she reciprocates him. He drives off on the road, passing by walkers. Finally we see a live Rick. He says he thinks all the time about the dead and the living he has lost. Elsewhere, Michonne says she thinks about everyone every day. They will always be together, even when they are apart. Together they are, parts of a single whole, they gave each other one unstoppable life. Michonne and Rick write letters separately. She writes that she knows Judith is out there somewhere, and so is her brother. She also knows that Rick is out there somewhere and that he is alive. She'll find him because she knows he's trying to find them too. Rick is on the beach. A helicopter flies over it. He is ordered to raise his hands up, which he does. At this time, Michonne is riding towards the Arday of walkers. Judith says they have to start over. We are the ones who will survive.